Rebel Force Radio presents
I am Boba Fett.
Boba Fett.
Jabba ruled with fear. I intend to rule with respect.
Boba Fett.
This is Rebel Force Radio's The Book of Boba Fett After Show.
Oh yes, chut. Welcome back, Rebel Force Radio, Boba Fett After Show. You know, just when you think that you haven't seen anything new in Star Wars for a while, along comes this show and you've got snorting lizards, you've got a Tusken Raider luau, you got twin Hutts. I heard you all, you said you wanted something new in Star Wars. Well, you got Boba Fett on an acid trip. I mean, this had a lot of new stuff that we never saw in Star Wars before. It was chock full of stuff. I have to say, though, since the premiere episode, I have gone online and checked out what people are saying about this show. And I have to say, I am a little surprised at how split it is when you consider how unified the fan base seemed to be about Mandalorian. So maybe that's something we can talk a little about. Why does there seem to be such a divide with this show? Or my theory is it's just revenge for a lot of some of the split that happened with the sequel trilogy. That's my own little theory. We'll talk about that and so much more as we take a look at Chapter 2 of the Book of Boba Fett, the tribes of Tatooine, and got some surprises this week. Now this next is not any surprise. He's with us each and every week. My good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mack.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans. Is that a lizard up your nose, or are you just happy to see me? Oh, boy. Yeah, you said everything I really have to say about this episode in your intro, Jason.
Oh,
so
sorry.
Sign off.
Wrap it up.
Actually, I do want to say something about last week's show. If everyone remembers, I did not see Matthew Wood's name in the closing credits for episode 1. And I thought that was weird that he wasn't being attributed to contributing to some sort of sound design for the show or what have you. Well, I stand corrected. I was looking at the Skywalker sound credits when they all start rolling by and they show a bunch of names at once. Oh, no. Matthew Wood is much more important than that. He shows up on an earlier card as supervising sound supervisor. Is that what his title is? Supervising sound supervisor? I don't think so, but
something like that. It sounds fancy.
He's supervising some sounds, and that's what he does best. So I just wanted to throw that out there, so there's no misunderstanding about Matthew Wood still being employed by Star Wars, because he most certainly is. And I like Matt, so I just wanted to clarify that little mistake on my part before it gets back to Matt.
Well, I mentioned we have some surprises. We're going to start with this one. This is a very special guest that we have this week on the show. He's my absolute favorite YouTuber and a good friend of us here at Rebel Force Radio, Mr. Michael Mercy. You know him from the 80s Toy Museum. He's the sole curator and I was going to say sole contributor, but no, that's actually not true. You've got a lot of folks who contribute to the wonderful 80s Toy Museum. And that's quite a display you have behind you, though, Michael, I got to say. Some beautiful Star Wars stuff there.
Yeah, the 1/6 scale section. Yeah, lots of people have contributed to the 80s Toy Museum. Guys, thank you so much for letting me be on here. I've been a fan since the old days, back when it was, can we say the name of the old show?
Yeah, we're allowed. We're allowed now. We have the rights.
Oh, okay. The Force Cast. Yeah, I used to listen to it, when I was doing the other job, and it got me through a lot of crappy days. So big fan of your take on Star Wars. It's always positive, upbeat, and you take it seriously without taking it too seriously. You always make it fun. And so I'm looking forward to chatting a little bit about Boba Fett tonight.
That is the key. Also joining us behind the scenes, but certainly heard and felt, our wonderful call screener, Tyler Page. Tyler, great to have you. We'll be putting the phone number up here so you can give us a call here shortly. So how you doing tonight, Tyler? You said you were a little tuckered out, were you?
Yeah, a little tuckered out. You stay up till 3 a.m. to watch it, and then you got to wake up at 7 for work.
Okay. Was
Yeah,
it
one
worth
run
it
cycle.
though? I mean, is it worth it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was on the edge of my seat. So
You got it. You play it smart because you don't have to worry about the spoilers the next day, and that's my big battle because I get up, I go to the day job, and I can't check my email. I sometimes forget, and I'll go on Instagram or something, and then I'll see something I shouldn't have seen. So I've learned just kind of seal myself up in carbonite for a few hours until I can see the episode. And now I've started this thing where the kids they gotta watch it with me, just like with Mandalorian. So it is like Mandalorian, at least in our house. It's family viewing. Get home from work and get it on so that Dad can go do the after show. But I do want to throw this out, and Tyler, we'll check in with you a little bit later. Thanks again, buddy. I do want to throw this out. I wrote this quote down. This was my daughter's quote when the Rancor, when the guy, the prisoner went into the Rancor pit. The door was coming up, and we were all like, "Whoa!" And then it wasn't there, and my daughter said, "That's a good tactic, but I was excited about nothing." So she was bummed. I didn't take it that way. I thought it was really clever that they were teasing you with it, and what was it, like a little rat kind of thing that was in there. And I also liked it from the standpoint of that it kept with the continuity. We know there's not a Rancor in there. We would, if there would have been a Rancor in there, and this is what I said to Bailey. I said we would all be saying, well, "How did a Rancor get in there? When did he capture this Rancor?" We're never totally satisfied with this stuff.
Right. And that kills any rumors that Bib Fortuna had the Rancor that he had acquired in the Bad Batch. Remember that little baby Rancor Mooney or Muni or whatever?
Moochie, I think.
That's what it was. It puts an end to those that speculation, and also it just makes me think about Black Series collectors everywhere. They don't get the Rancor, and neither does the Book of Boba Fett.
Something tells me, but I do the details that they're getting, and this is, I would say, because we got some questions after last week's show. They're like, "You guys, described the show really well, and you went through all these different elements, but we didn't get a sense of whether you really liked it or not." And I stopped short of that. I mean, I said that I enjoyed the episode. I'm not ready to make a total judgment on the series yet, but something that comes to my mind, Michael, is what I'm feeling right now so far is that this is long on detail, great attention to detail, really hits you in the nostalgia, a little short on story.
Well, I haven't seen it yet, so no spoilers.
Oh, oh no.
I'm kidding. I had to sneak that in there. I watched it this morning and again right before this, but I'm the same as you. Man, it's weird when it goes to the solo shot of me.
Oh,
Don't look.
Don't look. I'm trying to see where you guys are, but I'm not going to judge the show until it's done. So I know it's really tempting to judge the whole show based on one episode, but you don't go into a movie and judge the movie based on the first half hour of it or first even 50 minutes of it. I mean, I just saw Ghostbusters Afterlife, and about half hour into it, I was liking it, but I was thinking, this is kind of moving along slow. And then by the end of the movie, my socks were blown off. So Boba Fett's kind of the same thing. I enjoyed the first episode, and I enjoyed the second episode even more. And I'm definitely going to watch the third one. I didn't think that the second episode would be rewatchable. We've got a malfunction at the junction here. Now you want to cut away.
that's right.
I don't normally rewatch these episodes this quickly. Like Mandalorian, I was rewatching them, but I waited about a week or two or more. Honestly, the only reason I rewatched this episode was so that I would know what I'm sort of talking about for tonight's show. But I'm actually glad I did, because I missed so much. So, here's me thinking the first episode was okay. The second episode was better. And then watching it the second time through, like later on that day, I just went, wow, I missed a whole bunch of stuff. This thing moves slow, but has tons of detail and moves really fast too.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on this idea of not judging it until it's complete. Jem, this feels to me less serialized, less episodic than Mando. I really do feel like I'm watching a longer form movie, and they're just, I don't want to say arbitrarily stopping, because they have certain beats that they end the episodes on, but you're not getting a whole lot of resolution so far, I think, from episode to episode, whereas Mando, they kind of tied it up in a little bow at the end of the episodes.
Yeah, that's a good observation. This should be really looked at as a whole piece, beginning, middle, and end, as opposed to good episodes, bad episodes. That's irrelevant, because the whole story is being told out throughout these 7 episodes. So I prefer it that way myself.
And how do you feel in terms of, some of the criticism that, well, okay, you can say it's a slow burn, but hey, we only have 7 episodes. We've got 5 more to go. And there's, really, I would say that they've probably, if we look at the Boba Fett story, they've told a lot more about what happened to him after the Sarlacc pit and with the Tuskens than they have with this sort of current Boba Fett story continuity of, of him becoming crime lord of Tatooine, Daimyo, by the way. I wrote that down phonetically so I don't say it wrong this time. Daimyo. Do you think that they're giving short shrift to one of the stories versus the other?
Who, the critics?
No, the writers. It seems like it's slanted a little bit more towards the Tusken story than it is the Boba Fett as daimyo of Tatooine.
Well, thus far, yeah,
right.
No, I think that's important because all of that stuff happened prior in the timeline, so it's obvious that the events of these flashbacks are going to have repercussions in the present day era of the storytelling. So I think it's unfolding exactly the way it should. I still have a few other questions myself that will be answered via flashbacks in upcoming episodes. So I think it's important to prioritize the questions, prioritize giving us answers to the questions we already have before dropping another set of questions in our lap.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, because this isn't made by J.J. Abrams, right? We're not
That's
just
right.
throwing more and more questions after questions.
Yes.
I'm loving the flashback stuff, actually. I'm kind of like the stuff of him taking over Jabba's palace and taking over Mos Espa pops up, and I'm really interested to see how he became a Tusken Raider. And what I think is really fascinating, because I heard everyone else. I agreed with some of the concerns, I'll say, about the first episode. My wife even said it too. He's not really like Boba Fett. What is this honor stuff and integrity and we don't torture and stuff? And I'm like, the interesting thing about this show is that I already got the Boba Fett show I wanted, and it's called The Mandalorian. So it's weird because everything I wanted in a Boba Fett show I got in The Mandalorian. It was a Boba Fett that retained his mystique or had his mystique restored. And mystique is an air of mystery. There's a real, and I'm a big G.I. Joe fan, there's a real similarity between Boba Fett and Snake Eyes. There's a lot of characters in Star Wars that became very special and very beloved, and it wasn't because of their mystique. I got a whole bunch of them behind me right here. Like Han Solo, there isn't an ounce of mystique about his character. Luke Skywalker, there's really no mystique about him. It's what you see is what you get with those type of characters. But then you have some other characters like Boba Fett, like Snake Eyes, and they don't do much. They don't say much, but there's that aura, that mystique about them that makes them special. And when you get rid of all that mystique and explain every tiny little thing, I mean, even Vader right there had quite a bit of mystique about him. When you get rid of all that mystique, I mean, that was what made the character special. Case in point, the new Snake Eyes movie, when you demystify the character completely. And I like that movie. I didn't really like it as a Snake Eyes movie. I liked it as a Kung Fu action movie.
Yeah, right. It was, it was anything but, I think, a movie about Snake Eyes. But that is something that we noticed. We saw this start to unfold at the end of The Mandalorian season 2, when there started to become the talk and these rumors about how much FaceTime Pablo needed to have in order to be eligible for awards. Yeah. And so I wasn't shocked when a lot of the footage that we saw in the trailers was Boba Fett sans helmet. But that does seem to be a big source of the criticism. And Jim, they're saying, to Michael's point, that is taking too much of the mystique away from Boba Fett. And it's, and some feel that they're not even really watching Boba Fett because he spends so much time out of the armor. And the armor was such a big part of the character.
Well, that's their problem. And Jason, you've known me for a long time. You know I've never let outside criticisms or critiques shade my judgment of something. And I mean, what the critics are saying, I've seen some outrageously absurd critiques of the show online, and then I just quit reading them because they're a waste of my time. I know how I feel about the show, and I'd really like to get into this week's episode and break that down and discuss that as opposed to talking about what other people think about the first episode.
Yeah, I think that, what we're doing is sort of setting the tone for, I think, some of the things that were left unsaid. I felt after last week's episode that it was such a micro look into the various things that happened that there wasn't really kind of a context, an overall context of how I was feeling. And I specifically left that out because I just didn't have enough in order to get that context. But I understand some of the criticism. But at the same time, like we were saying, I feel that this is much less of a serialized, episode by episode thing, and it's much more. I think when we stand back and we look at the whole picture, we're going to be a much better place to judge some of this stuff. The detail.
I was surprised by the harsh criticism of last week's show because, let's face it, last week's episode had Star Wars stuff happening in it that I've waited to see since 1983. So I don't know what's up everyone's butts, but F the critics. This is a great show. And I think I haven't really looked at what people are saying online about this week's episode, but something tells me a lot of people are going to be changing their tune when talking online about the Book of Boba Fett following this week, which I thought was absolutely epic.
Yeah.
There's one aspect about this show, this particular episode, that I realized something possibly about the entire show. So he takes his helmet off again when he goes into the, whatever it is, the bar or the cantina style of thing, which was weird last week. And the sanctuary. And it's weird again. It's weird when I see him walking around and just pop the helmet off. Cause there's that instant demystification. I'm like the helmet, but as the episode progressed and we see how he became a part of the Tusken Raider tribe, I'm really crossing my fingers and hoping that the whole point of this show is to explain why he is not like the Boba Fett from Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, why he just pops it off like it's not a big deal, why he's so chatty, and why honor and integrity are so important to him. Just in the course of this episode alone, I saw a transformation in the guy, and he's part of this tribe now. He belongs to a really cool bunch of dudes. So by the end of it, I thought, I think I'm starting to understand why he's behaving in this very, un-Boba Fett, if you want to use that term, style manner, like in terms of the Boba we knew before. And in that case, I'm thinking, why are you even wearing the helmet? You don't need it. You've transformed in this new stage. You're old Boba now, which, going back to Mandalorian, it was chef's kiss. That Boba Fett, before he got the armor, I thought it was perfect. I'm like, that's a beautiful evolution of that old character we know and love. It's like in wrestling, Jason, you're a big wrestling fan. When a wrestler comes back and he's older and he's sort of the same, but totally different, like superstar Billy Graham, right, or, the Undertaker always changing up his look. So when Boba got the armor back, I was like, okay, well, that's still cool. But then he painted it up and I'm like, oh, why'd you paint it? Why'd you just leave it all, messed up? And
right.
But yeah, so I'm starting to understand possibly, and we'll have to watch more of these episodes, but why this change has occurred in Boba Fett, I think has to do with the Tuskens.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think that that's something that some people are not paying enough attention to, which is, I think if you're waiting to see a continuation of the Boba Fett character from Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, that's not going to happen here. That's already been written. That's already there for you to take a look at. He's the cool man with no name, and then even in the special edition, he's flirting with the dancing girls in Jabba's palace. And everything, he loses everything, literally loses everything. He loses his ship. He loses his armor. All he has is these tattered rags, and he has to rebuild himself. And he does it through his wits and his absolute refusal to lay down and die. And his what he does with the Tuskens and sort of winning them over. I mean, that's, you look at how harsh these guys are. That's incredible. That is an incredible story. I mean, everything from, learning their fighting style. I mean, he obviously could take care of himself, but he's learning their fighting style. He's contributing to them by showing them how to, incorporate technology with the speeder bikes and all of that. So we'll get to all of that. I do want to give a quick tale of the tape here so that we know. We'll put it in context. We're talking about, obviously, Book of Boba Fett, Chapter 2, original air date January 5th, 2022. A little bit longer running time on this one, just a hair over 51 minutes, directed by Steph Green and once again written by Jon Favreau. And I don't know if Jim, do you recall, does Jon Favreau have the sole writing credit on all these episodes? Was that revealed?
No, it hasn't been revealed. We learn all this stuff when we see the credits.
Yeah.
They don't tease it ahead of time, really. We pick up little clues from interview comments, etc. But I didn't even know the director of this episode, Steph Green, not Seth Green.
I know. I thought it said Seth Green when I saw it.
Stephanie. She's known for she's known for directing some episodes of Watchmen, at least one for HBO, and she also worked on the Luke Cage series. So those are two relevant credits in her past that bring her to Star Wars. She's also Oscar nominated for a small independent film she did years ago. But I had no idea who she was, or never heard her name before I saw her name in the credits. And then I looked her up. But as far as Favreau, he does receive writing credits on all the episodes of The Mandalorian, but I can't recall if he shares any of those writing credits. If he does, it's very minimal. This is a Jon Favreau production, and he's overseeing it and writing it. And I do know that Dave Filoni wrote the Ahsoka episode, The Jedi from The Mandalorian. That I can recall.
Right.
So yeah, Favs doesn't have exclusivity on it, but the majority of the scripts are solely written by him.
Yeah. The number to call, by the way, we want you to chime in during, not just in the chat if you're watching here on YouTube, but also the number 708-866-1737. Give us a call, 708-866-1737. Tyler is ready to screen your call, find out what it is exactly you want to talk about. And we want to try to get through. We had to leave a few people out last week. So if you can get to your question as quick as possible. We know you love the show, right? No, we want to hear all that nice stuff. But we want to make sure that we get as many people on as possible. So we pick up, guys, right where we left off. Fett said, Fennec, alive. He wanted somebody alive. And so they bring him in, they interrogate him. And this is where, Michael, you were talking about, no pun intended, the mercy that he's showing. This is a different Boba Fett. This is a Fett that is showing, he threatens a lot. He has the Gamorrean guard get the knife, at the throat.
By the way,
yeah.
Ever since you mentioned the dad bod Gamorrean last week, I can't not see it.
I know he's kind of got a 2-pack. They both have like a little.
I know. I can't.
They're not overweight, but I do love Jimmy's explanation, which is that Bib Fortuna was eating everything in sight, and the poor Gamorreans they were left picking up Bib's scraps. Yeah. But he threatens. They're going to cut his head off. They're going to drop him into the Rancor pit. It does pay off. But does it run the risk, Jim, of neutering the character a little bit? Or do you think this is more evolution, this is growth, and perhaps him showing some of the things that he's learning from the Tuskens, who showed mercy on him, I suppose?
Oh, are you talking about Boba?
Boba. Mm-hmm.
Does it neuter him?
A little bit, where he hasn't really shown a lot of teeth yet.
How long was he in that Sarlacc?
Yeah, right.
Well, he wanted information from the guy.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to find out who paid the assassins to come after him unless he gets information. And that's why he wanted this guy alive. So he was able to extract the information from him, but instead of just then killing him, he uses him as a way to gain access into the mayor's domain.
Mm-hmm.
He shows up with the guy. I'm here to return this guy.
And of course,
now I find it interesting that the mayor declined any involvement in the what are they called? The Black Knights.
They're the order of the Night Wind.
The Night Wind. I have a hard time committing that to memory. I knew that name last week because I discovered a stunt person had a credit. One of those roof jumpers from last week, the parkour guys.
Right.
He had a credit as a Night Wind assassin. And I was like, oh, Night Wind, that wasn't revealed in the show. But then when I went back to retrieve that information, I think I saw it on IMDb, it was missing. So I couldn't retrieve that information from my memory because it's kind of a murky mess up there. But Night Wind. I had the Night Winds just recently after too much eggnog after our last show of the year. That gave me the Night Winds, something fierce.
We're downwind from Chicago, I know.
The mayor. You are downwind as the jet stream moves across the country. I dealt it. Swank smelt it 2 days later.
I felt it.
And he felt it. Yes. What were those tremors? All right. The mayor. He denies any involvement in the assassination of Boba Fett. Yet he orders one of his bodyguards to kill the Nightwing assassin right at the very beginning of the meeting.
Yep.
So obviously he didn't want that guy to say a word.
Yep.
So he's covering up something.
Yeah, this is like Jack Ruby killing Lee Harvey Oswald before he can talk a little bit.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. And so I found myself taking what the mayor was saying on face value, that it was someone else who hired those assassins to kill Boba. But then when I remember that he immediately exterminated that captured assassin from Nightwind, he's covering up something. So clearly I think he's the guilty party here.
Well, I'm glad you point that out because it threw me because I had no reason to not believe the prisoner because he was ready to crap himself because he thought a Rancor was going to come out and eat him. So I can't think in that second that he would lie. So I think we're supposed to take that to be the truth. He believes that it was the mayor that put him up to this. Mayor's guy takes him out. Mayor sends him off to the sanctuary where he hears the drum beats and here come the twins, those beautiful twins. So I don't know.
A lot of people were excited to hear what your take on the twins are. I know we'll be getting that.
We'll get to that. But Michael, what was your read on that whole thing where it was like, is it the mayor? Is it the Hutts? Who is it? Who's telling the truth, or do we not know yet?
I believed the mayor at first. He seemed like a pleasant fellow, but just based on what Jimmy just said, I'm a little more skeptical. As a toy guy, I guess I should throw this out too. The assassin kind of looks like this dude right here, thanks to 3D Joe's.
G.I. Joe. Now, who is that?
This is a night creeper. It's a Cobra Ninja night creeper. And
do have a similar look.
Every Joe fan who sees these assassins on Boba Fett this is what they think of. I believe, because
Yeah.
that's what I thought.
That looks definitely inspirational for the assassins, the Nightwind assassins, and you know, sometimes after I get the Nightwinds, I do get a Night Creeper, and it's,
Yeah, no, I think I'm looking at this in a different way, Jim, as you point out the sequence of events with the prisoner being taken out before he can talk. Something interesting they said is that they're not allowed to operate outside of hut space. So I don't think is Tatooine outside of hut space. I guess it would be outside of Nal Hutta. I'm not sure.
that one got me.
Never a problem before.
Look what I have.
Oh God, you know my
Atlas.
favorite.
Jason's
Ask the
favorite book.
Atlas. They'll
The
know.
Star Wars Essential Atlas.
Is that still
And,
canon, or is that Legends now?
And look at that. You got the whole galaxy there all mapped out.
All right.
So hut space, you say?
Yes.
I don't know if that's represented. It would be obviously it would be in the outer rim
Correct.
somewhere. I don't see any markings on. Oh, here it is. Hut space is Tatooine is
Not there?
I'm
There?
not seeing it. It's not in hut space according to this old map. Kessel is Narshada, Nal Hutta.
So it is
some other
not. So it's not.
planets,
So
but,
so they're in violation. So that was the mayor's justification for popping the guy. Was they're not allowed to operate. They're not allowed to have it to be outside of hut space. So they're gone. Done. Well, that's nice and tidy for him. That's for sure.
yes, I'm. Oh, Tatooine is quite a ways outside of hut space, actually. Yeah, it's just in the outer rim is what they call it, and as is hut space, but hut space is clearly.
So
See,
that
it's hard to
makes
tell
me
what
wonder-
the borders are. It's really hard to tell what the borders are because there are all these hyperspace lanes all over this map, and so I thought those were like space borders, but if hut space is bigger than I think it is, then Tatooine could be in it. No, Tatooine is not. Now I see where the borders are. Sorry to take you guys on this wacky journey.
That's all right.
but
Hey, this is real
hut
time.
Space is hut space.
So
is
what was
somewhere over
Jabba doing there in the
here,
first place?
and Tatooine is somewhere down.
Well, that's
here,
a good
so-
that's a good question. What was Jabba doing there in the first place? If it's not hut space, I guess we could assume that he was trying to expand. But is he?
Well, they might have influence on planets outside of actual hut
Sure.
space because remember, in episode 1, they say the huts run
I don't.
Tatooine.
Sorry, I
The
don't.
huts are gangsters. Settle down, Mercy. Okay. If I want to talk about episode 1, I'm going to talk about it. I don't care what your prequel hangups are. Aren't we over that? That was 20 years ago.
You know what's really crazy to me is that you got some like old time Star Wars fans who grew up on the prequels, and that just blows my mind. People
Well,
going around, oh
nowadays,
yeah, man, I watched Star Wars when I was a kid, and these are people with like beards and
Yeah.
gray hair, and I go, oh yeah, what's your favorite movie that you grew up on? Oh yeah, Attack of the Clones. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh god.
They're real. I got a gripe. I got to have a little curmudgeon-y moment because I was not a fan of the mayor's major domo, and
David Pasquale.
Oh,
Yeah.
is that Matt
Comedian.
Frewer? What's his name?
he
No,
looks
that's
like Matt
David
Frewer,
Pasquale.
but
a little bit, yes.
it
Sounds
wasn't
like it, too.
him.
Okay.
But I thought he was bad until I saw the city hall clerk. When I saw the
dude with
city
the
hall
mullet
clerk
and
with the mullet
mustache.
played by Galen Howard, I was like, oh man, it's like a robot chicken sketch come to life. Like,
That guy
and
was rough.
you have an appointment, and
Mhm.
could somebody
That's a little-
tell
yeah,
these
that's
guys
weird.
that they're not on some CW show? They're in a Star War. There's a style of acting that is necessary, and this kind of nuanced, I don't know how to describe it, but you know it when you see it, and these two guys don't have it. I mean, go be funny somewhere else. There's a
That
way to.
popped into my mind. Like
What's
the
the?
moment that scene happened, what you said last week popped into my mind. And I agree with you. There is a certain style of being in a Star Wars movie. And when I see things like that, I think, well, that's a Marvel moment. That's not a Star Wars moment. That kind of glib comedy moment that, it's
Yes.
fine. I've got really no gripe with it. It's fine, but it's not classic Star Wars per se. It's more modern Marvel sneaking its way into it.
Now, Peter on the chat, he goes, Swank, have you gone to City Hall recently? That's spot on. That's my point, Peter. Yeah, I know. It's exactly like real life. That's not what I want from my Star Wars. I don't want real life. I want escapism.
Great.
Yeah, but you were right. What you said, glib. That's a great way to describe it. That style of humor. Jeff on the chat says it's like an SNL sketch. Yeah, it's just something I could do without. That's for sure. But I thought the mayor was cool. I loved the fact that he was hooked up to the translator. That was Robert Rodriguez, by the way, supplying the voice.
Oh, cool.
I thought it was cool how it was layered, how you could kind of hear his native language as well as the lying words of basic coming through the translator. I thought that was cool.
It was interesting how he was hairy. He was a hairy hammerhead.
He was a hairy hammerhead.
Yeah, that was interesting. Adding that sort of texture to him. I'm Harry Hammerhead here with you.
Yeah, very different look for the species. That's a good point. I don't think we've ever seen a hairy hammerhead. And to that end, we never saw. I don't remember ever seeing a black Wookiee before, but we got him, and he's even named Black.
Yeah,
it's like
Black Chrysanthemum. He was introduced in the Darth Vader Marvel comics, the first run, and he is a foil to Dr. Aphra. And boy, did he look badass in live action. Now, Dr. Aphra, of course, seeing him, it just makes me, count down the minutes until Dr. Aphra makes her live action debut, which we know is inevitable, which we know is in motion. We've heard behind the scenes that it's happening. In the trailer, the very last, well, not trailer, but promo spot that came out before the show debuted in December, there was a brief glimpse of a girl on a speeder bike riding in the streets of Mos Espa. And I was speculating that's Dr. Aphra that we see in that spot. She looks a little different. She doesn't have the goofy leather pilot's cap and goggles on, nor did she have the weird tattoos on her arm, straight lines and circles. But I thought that was Dr. Aphra, and I'm starting to really lean in that direction now. But we did get some information from a casting call for the character. And according to the casting call, well, number one, the actor is Sophie Thatcher. Sophie Thatcher. And the casting call for the character was named Drash. Okay? That could just be a code name for Aphra. They don't always put the actual names of the characters in these casting calls. But she could be Drash. So that's Sophie Thatcher. It's hard to say her name. Sophie Thatcher. There she is, Jason. Just put a picture of her up on screen. I think she looks a lot like Ali Sheedy from The Breakfast Club.
Oh, yeah, I see it.
But the casting call describes her as British, which is odd because Sophie is from Chicago. But the casting call refers to her as British, cool, self-assured, and in need of refinement. A faithful member of a street crew, Drash is willing to question authority. She's the sidekick to Scad, an 18 to 24-year-old man. Scad is described as British, edgy, fit, and resilient. Scad is willing to question authority, and an offer to play Scad went out to actor Jordan Bolger. I don't know Jordan. I really don't know Sophie Thatcher at all, but we're going to get to know her for sure, playing a character called Drash or perhaps Dr. Aphra. I think we're getting closer to Dr. Aphra with the inclusion of Black Chrysanthemum in this show. And I liked seeing him make his live action.
What is
debut,
she?
too, 'cause
What is she a doctor of, by the way?
she's a doctor of archaeology, like Dr. Jones.
Oh, okay.
I think she is.
Really?
Don't take my word for it.
I
I
thought-
don't really read the Dr. Aphra comics too much, but
Oh, you.
I occasionally one slips by me.
Yeah.
It's not my favorite comic book, nor is she my favorite character, because I don't like how flippant and real world she is. You want to talk about that, the clerk or the major domo for the mayor. I mean, Dr. Aphra is really real world, and she's always smart talking to Darth Vader. And I just have a hard time accepting that.
Yeah.
You want to make your character ballsy, so you make her be a foil for Darth Vader. That is so stupid to do something like that. But Marvel Comics has been doing it, and that's been a big turnoff.
Look how
for
tough
me
she
and
is.
Dr. Aphra.
She sticks it to Darth Vader.
Yeah,
she's a
it's that kind of
badass.
thing. It's that kind of thing, and it comes off as real shallow and phony. Now,
Yeah.
her inclusion in the Book of Boba Fett might add some more fleshing out for the character, make her a little more acceptable, a little more realistic, and a little more fleshed out than what we get in the comic books, where she comes off as being pretty one-dimensional to me in the comic books.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but again, I don't read them, so that's just surface value sort of critique by me.
Yeah. Well, I
But
mean,
I think we might see her. I think we might see her in this show.
I think it's very likely, especially with Black Chrysanthemum showing up. I think that might be the final clue. Another thing that we were speculating about turns out to be true. Yes, we did. Michael, you want to keep this OT? I mean, you can't get more OOT than Cammy and Fixer showing up with a little cameo in this. Cammy got a cameo with Fixer, and in the credits, I needed confirmation, and I saw that Fixer was in there in the credits as Fixer, but on IMDb, I think it's an IMDb, or was it in Wikipedia? He's listed as his Christian name, Lays Lones Lenozner.
Yeah, people who call him that are the same
Lenozner.
schmoes who call the Emperor Sheev. I mean, nobody calls Fixer Lays. Lays. That's the name of a potato chip, not a Star Wars character. But there you have, there's Fixer right there, the action figure of Fixer with his leather jacket, originally played in the OT in the deleted scenes of the OT by Anthony Forrest. And here's Cammy with her little pet, whatchamacallit. And she was played in the original trilogy deleted scenes by an actress named Koo.
Are those
Stark.
Are those customs?
No, these are legit action figures. They came out as a exclusive comic pack at one of the Star Wars celebrations.
Yes.
It was at a Star Wars celebration. These things were exclusive. Great figures. They probably go for decent value on the secondary market, which will only rise with their appearance in canon via the Book of Boba Fett. I mean, these are the first times we're actually seeing these characters in canon. They appeared in the novelization for Star Wars. They appeared in the comics adaptation, and they were shot to be featured in those Anchorhead moments that were edited out of the original Star Wars. So they've never been canon, legitimate canon until now, live action canon until now.
I know.
think that's fabulous.
I know we've always wanted to see what the Tashi station actually looked like. Now we know. I didn't see any power converters there.
It was featured in the deleted scenes, which first became available on a CD-ROM called Behind the Magic or Beyond the Magic, something like that. Remember those CD-ROMs?
Yeah, but we saw it, but it wasn't, we didn't see it the way we see it in this episode, where it's so well lit and you see it from all these multiple angles and everything like that.
Yeah. Non-grainy footage.
Right, exactly.
But it's very accurate to the stills and the deleted scenes and things we've seen before. Very accurate.
Yeah. That scene though, when he goes in and he kind of he beats up. I guess they're listed as miners. I think. I thought they were just like a motorcycle gang, but I think according to Wikipedia, they're miners, so they're local workers there or something like that. Yeah.
I thought they were the same crew that raided the homestead in episode 1, and they spray painted the symbols on the outside of the homestead, and those symbols have been identified as letters from the Hutt alphabet, and the letter is K. And there were 2 Ks sprayed on that homestead building. So I was thinking it was Kathleen Kennedy.
Oh.
But really, Smart Money says that it's Kanji Club, 2 Ks.
They're listed as Nikto miners.
Nikto miners.
Nikto miners.
Well, what were they doing in a bar if they were just miners? Hello.
Well, because the majors hadn't shown up. No, I think they were letting off a little steam. They're getting off the day job, I guess, and showing up and tilting back a few. But they got a little over the top. They feel like they own the place. They walk right over to Fixer. And isn't Fixer, I don't know the deleted scenes as well, but isn't Fixer the one that's given Luke such a hard time?
Yes.
So it's a little nice to see him getting his comeuppance there with that Nick Miner grabbing the drink. He's like, it's not fair.
I didn't even think of that.
Yeah. It's not right. Yeah. Where was the not right when you were picking on Wormy?
Yeah, you be a big bully. As a matter of fact, in the English audio descriptive track for the episode, they refer to the Niktos as bullies. And so I thought that was pretty funny.
Really?
But
bullies.
Yeah. Yeah. I love how Boba has a James Bond moment at the end when he kicks everyone's ass and he walks over to the bar, grabs a drink, and takes a shot. And he's just like,
yeah, right. Yes. I've noticed that Tem gets that in. That's 2 episodes now.
Do you think he's vying for the role of James Bond?
Secretly? No, I think he's reliving his moment as the Maori spokesman for New Zealand, where he's like, New Zealand,
the Polynesian spa.
All right, well, let's talk about the Hutts, because I know that's something that I've made a lot of. I've said many times on the show that I don't think they've had a good looking, realistic Hutt since 1983 in Jabba. They're just never going to do better than latex and rubber and puppeteers inside and all of that.
Case in point, I did a short film in university, and we threw it together in a weekend. It was a Star Wars parody, and I went on, and I don't know where I found these. You can't get them anymore, but they were tan garbage bags, and I bought an entire box of tan garbage bags, and I filled it with pillows and blankets, and I had like a couple of people in this thing, and we puppeteered it like Jabba, and we had orange peels for his eyes, and it looked ridiculous. It looked absolutely ridiculous, but it was humongous. Everyone who sees it thought, wow. And I thought it looked better than the CGI Jabbas. So
I bet it did.
Garbage bags.
I bet it did. I do have to give some credit, though. I thought that in terms of CGI Hutts, this was the best that they've done. I really do think that. I think this was the best that they've done. I liked that they were, very unmistakably Hutts, but they each had a different personality. I also thought that the effects that they did on the voices were really good, better than some of the stuff that we've been treated to since the original Jabba in 1983. So I was pretty pleased with it. I also thought it was great to see them, what was it, a Hutt on a litter, not just one Hutt, 2 Hutts on a litter. How many people had to carry? Did it take to carry those Hutts? I would imagine quite a few.
Looked like there were probably a dozen people there.
At least it was like carrying one of the Macy's parade balloons through the streets. I liked them. What's that?
Have those guys appeared before? like in the Clone Wars, or
They're
are
new.
No, they're new to the show.
They are new. In fact, their names aren't even revealed anywhere. They're just the Hutt twins is the only thing that I was able to find.
When I
Brother
heard
and
twins
sister.
earlier in the episode, I thought that they were talking about the twins that were in the cantina, those twin ladies.
Oh, the
And then
Twilight.
when these Hutt showed- yeah,
the
yeah.
Tonica
And then when the
sisters, I was thinking
So
the
when
same
the
thing.
Hutt showed-
Actually.
Oh, Tonica sisters. Oh, yeah. Now that would have been cool. That would have been real cool. So we don't have confirmation of the 5 families that you're referring to, Michael, in the Clone Wars, where we saw the 5 Hutt families. These 2 certainly weren't there. These are relatives of Jabba. These are his cousins.
I was expecting Stinky to come and reclaim his father's
yes,
area.
I wouldn't have been mad at that. I really wouldn't have. I didn't think that. I wasn't upset about them creating new characters, for this, but I guess if I had my druthers, I'd have preferred them to dip into the Clone Wars and grab 1 or 2 of those Hutts, or one of them coming in and making a stand or making a play for Jabba's territory. Stinky would have been a great option, but for whatever reason, I don't know. These
Whoever thought those words would be spoken.
Yeah,
very true.
Yeah, no kidding. They also were smoking hookah pipes, so that was a nice little detail, or at least the Lady Hutt was.
She was smoking?
Yeah.
I didn't notice that. I saw the bowl at her side.
The bowl. Well, the bowl was there, so I assume. Of course,
Yeah,
the
I
bowl
think
might
it
have been
was-
just where they kept their prey, what they were eating.
Yeah, they keep their grub. Their grubs
You know, what
to
I-
grub.
What
yeah,
I
don't
thought was
think
really
she
funny about
smoking.
that whole scene was like when Jabba was getting sweaty, he was using like an actual animal to like wipe.
Just like a rat or something.
Oh.
Yeah, he was.
I thought it was-
Yeah, and then he throws it away.
I thought it was a hoop jib from the original Marvel Comics run, because it had this, like the hoop jibs, they look like little rabbits. They had big floppy ears and they had these little antennae. And I noticed that this little creature had all the physical attributes of a hoop jib, including that antenna, but he didn't have the big floppy ears. He had small ears. So maybe it was an infant hoop jib. I don't know. But yeah, he was using it in a most peculiar way, as if it was like a handkerchief or a bandana. He was like mopping his head with it.
Yeah. Where are the animal rights folks on that? Like, that's terrible. Walking around mopping your sweat off with an animal.
Hoop jib abuse is a very serious thing in Mos Espa.
Cue the Sarah McLachlan song. It didn't take too long, though. I mean, just as you're getting into, modern day Boba's trials, he goes back into the back to tank for a flashback to, and we get to see him as he becomes part of the tribe, and there was a funeral pyre, so that was they were keeping consistent. Something that was pointed out to me, skipping ahead to the acid trip, is when he's in the tree. One of my kids thought they spotted Jawas in and around the tree, and I didn't see it until I saw the concept art in the credits, and it's very clear in the concept art. But in the actual footage of the show, I didn't see the Jawas. Did you guys
I
see
thought it was clear as
Jawas?
a bell. I don't know if it was Jawas. It was glowing red eyes. I thought it could be a bunch of those little lizards that you snort. And by the way, I've heard of licking toads to get high, but snorting lizards.
Yeah.
I hope this doesn't start some kind of trend on Insta or anything like that where kids start snorting lizards, because you're not going to get off on it. What I found interesting was the lizard worked in tandem with the spice. Now, the spice should have been enough to send Boba out on his vision quest, but the lizard up the nose is a whole different added value that I don't know if many spice users know about this, how you can snort a lizard with your spice intake, and the next thing you know, you're getting wrapped up in the Joshua tree. But it was interesting because, you know, this is very, very Dances with Wolves. A lot of the things that are going on in this show. Now, the Indians gave Kevin Costner peyote. The Tuscans give Tim Morrison spice and a lizard up the nose. But the purpose is for them to go on these spiritual journeys that will cement their place within the tribe. And that's what happened to Tim. He went off on his spiritual journey. And I would call him Boba, but I keep thinking he's Jango Fett. So I'm just going to call him Tim from now on. I'm tired of making that mistake. So Tim goes on his spiritual journey. But the interesting thing about it is that he comes back with a trophy. And that's a branch from this tree. And you'd have to imagine a primitive culture like the Tuscans would treat anything forged of wood as something very special on a planet like Tatooine that has very minimal or any lush areas or trees, very uncommon. But the Tuscans have had access to wood going back to the original trilogy, when of course they had the gaffy sticks. And then in the prequel trilogy, you could see wood was prevalent in their camp where they had Shmi Skywalker. She was all wrapped up in like a wooden sort of rack. And they're burning fires. So obviously there's wood to be found on Tatooine, but you'd have to think that the Tuscans treat it as very sacred. So Tim comes back, he's got the branch. And as viewers, we're like, oh, big deal. He's got a branch. But then we see how gaffy sticks are forged. And I thought that was spectacular. Of all the origin stories to get, we get the origin of the gaffy stick.
Yeah.
And I thought that was not something I saw coming. So what I think is really the value of this show so far is how much it's expanded. And you brought this up at the beginning of the show, Jason, how much it's expanded our knowledge about the Tuscans and what makes them tick. And the fact that there's differences amongst Tatooine tribes, Tuscan tribes, and, they're not savages like we're led to believe. That's what makes Anakin's fall to the dark side in episode 2 so much more tragic, is because as we learn more about the Tuscans, we learn that they're not just savages. They're not just animals and should be slaughtered like animals. They're actual people with, a social structure and spirituality and faith and all kind of things. There's a misunderstanding between them and the other settlers on
the
Tatooine.
Off-worlders. They call them the off-worlders.
The Pikes too, the Pikes.
Well,
humans and Pikes and Nictus. Oh
yes.
my.
So, Michael, when you saw Return of the Jedi for the first time and you saw the speeder chase and you saw Luke Skywalker jumping from one speeder onto the other speeder, jumping onto Leia's speeder, did that strike you as something that would be difficult to do, that you'd have to learn try to do over and over and over and over again?
I grew up on Western, so I didn't give it any thought. Jumping from one horse to another, I've literally never given it a thought. And
right.
If I am to give it a thought, it's the Force.
Right.
If it requires anything more than just physical dexterity and skill, it's maybe use a little bit of the Force to steady him. But yeah, I never really thought about it, but I didn't mind that scene. I thought that was cool because these people have no idea about anything technological. So I could buy that they don't understand the physics of jumping from a moving object to a moving object, because they ride a bantha. How fast does that go?
Right.
So I could understand they don't understand the concept of inertia, which would totally mess you up. When you jump, you continue to travel forward, even though you're jumping off the thing that was carrying you forward.
Exactly. I loved it. I thought it was a testament to Luke's abilities, which I liked. I thought that it actually made Luke look even more skilled in hindsight, that it's not as easy.
Yeah, in retrospect, he is pretty cool now, looking back at how easily he did that jump.
Yeah, in one fell swoop. I'm such a fan of Return of the Jedi. It being the first Star Wars movie I ever saw in the theater, and so I'm really digging all of the Jedi references. Especially the details in Jabba's palace and all of that. Loving it.
The door opened.
The door. Yes, and the sounds of the door.
It's
Yeah.
one of my favorite shots in any Star Wars movie. Luke Skywalker's incredible entrance with the door going up, and I recreated that in my little Star Wars fan film too, using a garage door. But it was the same thing, right? And when it starts to go up, my first thought when I saw it go up is give it time. That's, as someone who's done a couple of short films, feature films, some music videos. Sometimes when I'm watching this stuff, I just think to myself, hold the camera, on the actor. Don't cut away. Let the actor act, or just let us take it in. What's the rush? This isn't a music video.
Right.
So when the door starts going up, my first thought was, please don't cut away. Please, this is a huge door. Let us enjoy it and savor it. And they did. So I love that whole sequence.
Yeah, I loved it too. I just, all the little details, even down to, the button that she uses to open the trapdoor. And, for those of us that grew up in that era and we had the original Kenner Jabba's playset, you forget that the great, because in the playset, the great was the trapdoor. But in reality, the trapdoor isn't the grate that they're looking down. It's its own it's a little door up ahead of it. And I always forget about that until you see it in action. So yeah, I mean, again, they just kept all those details. For those that were disappointed that we didn't get more time in the Sarlacc pit, you must have been thrilled in this episode because we got more time in the Sarlacc pit.
We need a whole series in the Sarlacc pit. To
satisfy some people, right? I mean, so we got some more. So I hope you're happy. We got to see some more slime and some more ick and him struggling a little bit more. I just don't know what more people.
You could have one of those glib Marvel shows. Just the whole show is in the Sarlacc. Hey, Bernie, how you doing?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, how do you think I'm doing? It's been 14 years.
in this pit.
Or you could have Ahmet Best host a game show for kids in the Sarlacc pit.
We start getting out. But yeah, I mean, I want to understand so badly those that feel that they were robbed of something. But it's like, how long do you want to stay in there? Like, what do you think's going to happen? It's like, is it like Indiana Jones going through with a torch? You thought it was going to be like that, like some sort of journey? Maybe you did.
Robot Chicken. That's all I got to say. Just watch Robot Chicken, and you'll get your whole sequence in the Sarlacc pit where he's busting balls and making fun of other people trapped in the pit. It's a lot of fun.
All right, well let's take some calls here. Got a first time caller from Pasadena. Ready to talk to Jeff. Hello, Jeff. You're on with Rebel Force Radio and Michael Mercy.
Yes, hi. Hi, guys. How you doing?
Doing great, thanks.
Hey, Jeff.
Hi, Jeff.
Hey, guys. Good to be talking to you guys. So a few things I wanted to bring up. One thing I noticed, there was a pretty cool Ralph Mcquarrie Art reference in there. I don't know if you guys caught it.
Yes, at the outdoor shop.
Boba, when Boba was making the gaffy stick.
That's right. Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, that's it. The gaffy stick workshop there, that open air workshop. The gaffy stick, that is Ralph Mcquarrie Art. Paul Bateman pointed this out on his Facebook page. There's a great shot of a Tusken Raider standing by the wreckage of this starship that had crashed. And the wreckage at the open air shop where they were making the gaffy sticks, it has the exact similar wreckage to what we see in that Mcquarrie Art. So, Jason, I'll send you a photo. I have a picture.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, that was very cool. All right. So something else that after I watched the episode this morning, I was thinking through it, and something that kind of struck me a little bit is this Tusken Raider, their culture. It feels a little bit more similar to like a primitive Mandalorian type of culture, where they seem to be sort of warriors. They're very serious about their fighting style, and they have this ritual where they build their own gaffy sticks, and they have an armorer, who's off on their own, and there's sort of this special place that they develop their own gaffy sticks, and they go on this trip and they bring back the stick, and I was just wondering if you guys got a similar vibe from that.
I thought, yes. In fact, I even went so far as to look and see if they were crediting that character as the armorer or as an armorer, because it seemed to be, I was picking up on that a lot. I thought that there were definitely some parallels being drawn with how the the two cultures, organized themselves. Very much so. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just thought it's interesting since, Boba wears the Mandalorian armor, but he's not a real Mandalorian, but now he's getting into this culture, which is very similar, a little more primitive, and now it's helping shape who he is into, sort of redefining his personality and what his character is. So I thought that was sort of interesting.
Yeah.
Good point.
All right. One other thing that I guess has been kind of bothering me a little bit about the show is, Tatooine from A New Hope, we see it just sort of this dust ball in the outer edge of the galaxy, but it seems like they're making it a very busy, important place now. Mos Espa is much bigger than I think we've seen any city there. Now we have the Pikes on there, a lot more creatures, a lot more things happening, and it feels like it's just a much more bustling kind of place than I expected to. And it sort of bothers me a little bit that maybe they're trying to force it to be more than it is. And I don't know if that's been something that's been on your mind at all or not.
Well, I know that Luke says, if there's a center to the universe, this is the planet that is farthest from. I never, I mean, this might be heresy, but I never really took that as anything more than everybody, kind of talks down about their hometown. Like when you grow up in a place, you don't think that it's special. You think that it's, the butt crack of the country or of the planet. Probably more so for some people than others. But I always thought that was just kind of a line that was less about Tatooine and more about Luke's feelings about Tatooine. So, when I watched A New Hope, the first time, or when I was just, being introduced to it, as a kid, I thought it was kind of a bustling place. I saw, the Mos Eisley spaceport. You see ships flying in and out all the time. It looked like an airport to me, as a kid. I didn't necessarily think that it was some sort of backwoods, backwater place. So my perception was just never that. But if you take it for, the value of the line, that it's, remote. I don't know. What about you guys?
I will say there's a lot more happening under the surface than I ever imagined. Between four-armed monsters and the frog dogs and little black melons. There's all kind of stuff going on in there, and sarlacc pits. Did you think when the train was coming across the Dune Sea that was going to be the Krayt Dragon? I sure did.
I thought it was going to be the Krayt Dragon, and then when I saw it was a train, Michael, you brought up Westerns, and that's exactly where my head went. When they were firing at the Tuskens, I thought that, you remember in episode 1, I know you don't, Michael, but in episode 1, when the Tuskens are firing the pot shots at the pod race, they're just always creating mischief, it felt like. So I thought that it was a train that was taking preventative measures, like, there's an encampment of Tuskens. We don't want them to raid our train and, steal all our valuables. Right. So I guess I was being very specious there in my assumptions of the Tuskens. So I thought it was preventative. I didn't think at first that they were criminals at all. I thought it was like old-fashioned West, and the train was defending itself.
Well, that is kind of what was being presented to us, was it not? That's what's said in the dialogue. We were just trying to forge ahead with our route without being attacked. We didn't realize. We thought you were savages. We didn't realize that there was any civilization to the Tuskens. We didn't realize that.
Well,
That's
I guess what I says. Yeah, I guess. Okay. So what obscured that for me was I thought that it was like a passenger train, so as opposed to, no, I know that now, but what I'm saying, when I first saw the train, I thought it was just a passenger commuter train and they were defending themselves from the possible threat. When I found out that they were smugglers, I had a lot less compassion for them and just said, "Oh, I see. They're just, they're being aggressive as opposed to defensive. That was just how I took it. But
speaking of the train sequence, I got an email from Carrie, who's a RFR Patreon supporter. And Carrie points out that there are great similarities between the sequence with the train and the classic film Lawrence of Arabia. Lawrence of Arabia. There is a desert train sequence featuring a train under attack.
I am embarrassed to say that that's one of those classic films that I have not seen. And it's on that list. You got that list of 50 movies to see before you die.
It's not anything that I can pull references to left and right out of my head either, Jason. I mean, Lawrence of Arabia, but it might be worth looking back at because there is a train attack sequence in that movie. And Carrie gave me a YouTube link to look at. And yes, it is, visually similar, where you have guys with rifles hiding behind dunes and the train shooting bullets at them. They're shooting bullets at the train. They use explosives to derail the train. It's very visually similar to Lawrence of Arabia. So when people are done listening to this show, maybe go check out the train sequence from the classic film Lawrence of Arabia, and it's like a 5-minute sequence, and you'll definitely know the similarities. It's the Lawrence of Arabia Turkish railway sequence is what you want to look
starring
for.
a young Alec Guinness, by the way, Lawrence of Arabia.
There's another reason to watch it, Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. That's
wasn't he in Star Wars?
I think he was.
Yes.
Rumor has it.
He was in the third one. He was the old man sitting on a log.
Why don't you let the puppet read that line?
Ghosts get tired too.
I love that.
All right, here we go. Another first-time caller and a Patreon supporter. Oh my God, John Williams calling. This has got to be a prank. Bet you never heard
gentlemen.
that before.
Chut, how you doing?
Chut, great to hear from you.
Every day. You know what? Love hearing it. I wish I had his talent and his checkbook. Those are the two things about John Williams. We actually share the same physician. I live in Los Angeles, so that's the one thing we do have in common. So I got that going for me.
Right.
You ever got any of his mail?
Absolutely. No,
here's some from George Lucas.
Including those checks.
Yeah, those residual checks. That's what you'd be looking for.
Exactly. I'm sure those are some beautiful checks. I'm loving this show. I'm loving these 2 episodes. I'm so dialed into it. And I picked up on something, and I'm hoping you're going to tell me I'm right because it's huge. When the Tusken Raiders are outfitting him in the robes and whatnot, is that the same getup? Are those the same threads that he's wearing at the end of season 2, episode 1, The Mandalorian?
Yes.
Interesting. So is this the first bridge between those 2 shows?
Yeah.
Timeline-wise.
It tells you a little something, about the timeline and how long Boba actually is with the Tuskens until he leaves them.
Right.
What do you think? What do you think prompts his departure from the Tusken tribe? I personally think they get wiped out somehow, and he's back to being on his own, a nomad in the desert, or his tribe got wiped out by the Krayt Dragon in the season premiere of season 2 of The Mandalorian.
So that's what sends him on his way.
I don't know that we have any indication that he's on his own, though, because
I'm just saying maybe.
We see a solo shot of him looking, but then the next time, because I remember coming out of that episode saying, "Wow, he must have been encamped with the Tuskens," because there are multiple Tuskens taking on the Krayt Dragon. But yeah, those are definitely the same threads, man. That's and that was a cool scene, the way they were sort of wrapping him. So it was more than just robes. You look at the Tuskens and they're wrapped. It's very cool.
Totally. I mean, I don't know. When I sort of dawned on me as I was watching the show, and I went, "Oh wow, here we go." For all those people who were, looking for that link. This is a huge link, what he's wearing. I mean, that was such a great reveal in the episode of Mandalorian. So I can't wait to see what happened next. What's going to happen next? I mean, that's the whole point of the show, right? I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. They want you to,
we not knowing what's going to happen next. And I think the Book of Boba Fett's doing a great job of that, not ending every episode. This hour, what was it, 51 plus minutes, just flew by for me. I thought the show it's got wings finally. It's really moving along beautifully.
couldn't agree more.
So
thanks, John. Appreciate it. And thanks for also being a Patreon member and a first-time caller. So please call us again. Yeah, I love the fact that I am really unspoiled about this show because it is there is the element of surprise. Now, one of the things that we talked a little bit about last week was, the use of footage in these trailers and these TV spots. And Rodriguez had made a comment about, well, you're only going to see, clips from, what was it, Jim? The first half of the first episode. But we're into episode 2 and we're seeing stuff that was in that trailer.
Yeah. Yeah. And we also still haven't seen a bunch of sequences that were in like every trailer, like him sitting down at the table, working out the deal with the other heads of,
we haven't seen that. Right.
Of the crime gangs and criminal gangs. And we haven't seen that. We haven't seen the girl on the speeder and that speeder bike chase. We still haven't even seen the Babar monk walking around outside of Jabba's palace. So, Mr. Rodriguez, his credibility is taking a little bit of hit with his pre-season interviews where he said, every episode is going to have mind-blowing reveals and stuff. I mean, it's debatable as to whether or not the first 2 episodes did have mind-blowing reveals, but his comment that he made about the trailer was absolutely inaccurate, just to put it kindly. Very inaccurate.
Hey, we got some super chats we want to get to here. They're very generous. Thank you guys so much. Jeff Holland says, Chut, when Boba was being taught to fight with a gaffy stick, he said, "Show me." I really wanted Boba to say, "Show me, sand the floor." Is that a Mr. Miyagi reference there? Show me, sand the floor. Am I right?
New season of Cobra Kai.
Yes, that's right. So Cobra Kai.
I know
right.
what's on Jeff's mind.
Happy New Year, Jason, J-Mac, and RFR fam. Thanks a lot, man. Appreciate that. Jeff, you're here on these live shows all the time, and we love it. We love it. Want to make sure I snag this one. Okay, who else we got here? This is Tatooine. Tatooine says, Chut, y'all. Looks like it's going to be more about his life between the Sarlacc escape and Mando 2, season 2, with some current timeline conflict sprinkled in. I think he's right. Love seeing Hutts, Pikes, and Black Chrysanthemum. Chrysanthemum? That's easy for me to say. Black Chrysanthemum. For sure. I think that, I agree. I think that it's more about his time with the Tuskens. What I worry, and I'll be honest, guys, what I worry about is if that is the case, is I got to say, the crime lord story feels thin to me. The Tusken stuff feels very rich.
That's an emerging story. It will expand. There are 5 more episodes left. So this Tusken story, this Dances with Wolves story needs to be told. And then it'll come full circle and you'll get an expansion of his story as the new crime lord and whatever conflicts that arise from that. I firmly believe that. I don't think this whole series is going to be focused on Boba riding with the Tuskens. We still haven't even seen half the episodes yet. So patience, Luke, patience.
Yes.
So that's all I have to say about that. I had other things to say too, but let's go through these super chats.
Dustin says Boba Fett died. Oh, this is kind of like what Michael was saying earlier. Boba Fett died in the Sarlacc. The guy that came out was a new man, a changed man. Michael, what do you think about that? Is that kind of what you were saying earlier?
Yeah, I like it. Why would he come out being exactly the same way? Maybe not so much the ordeal of the Sarlacc pit changing him, but definitely the suffering that he endured, having to walk through the desert and then becoming part of the Tusken tribe. But that's definitely I mean, that's a good like point to say, yeah, that's where the old Boba ended.
You know, something that would help for me, and I'm totally, you know, getting this idea that you're talking about, where this is a changed man. You brought it up earlier. Other folks are talking about it. Here's my hang up. My hang up is that outside of, you know, some cool posturing in the original trilogy, I'm not sure that we've seen this. We've not seen necessarily a representation of the badass cold as ice bounty hunter Boba Fett. So do you think that it would be helpful in some of these flashbacks for us to see that classic trilogy Boba at work, so we have something to sort of compare the new Boba to?
Yeah, my wife actually brought that up when we were talking about, you know, why is he so nice? What happened to, and we had that discussion, and I was going, actually, was he that bad? Was he that nasty? And she said, no disintegrations, which is why one of the reasons I love my wife so much. She can quote Star Wars,
right?
But she brought that up, and I had forgotten it.
With that line, you have to understand, Boba was never going to disintegrate anyone because he needed Han alive. He needed to turn in Han to Jabba alive. Yeah. He even says that in Empire Strikes Back. What if he doesn't survive? He's worth a lot to me. He never intended to disintegrate Han. So
I know. What I mean, though, is Vader is referencing a history we're not aware of.
Yes, his reputation. His reputation is that of a killer.
Yeah. So if they're gonna jump around the timeline, why not jump back to a little further back? Hey, give Daniel Logan a payday and let him play Boba from that era, even if instead of de-aging Tem, I'd still love to see Daniel Logan as Boba somewhere other than just the Clone Wars. But throw in one of those disintegrations.
Well, maybe season 2. Season 2.
I loved when we saw the disintegrations in Mandalorian. Here's my take on disintegrations. It's not about, of course he wasn't going to disintegrate Han Solo. I don't think that's the point. He didn't want anyone disintegrated. He didn't want the princess or anyone around. He wanted alive prisoners. He says it even in episode 4, and bring me the passengers. I want them alive. He wants to interrogate. He wants to learn information. So,
he wanted Han and Chewie in the princess. So to snare Luke, that was the bait.
Right.
That was the bait.
But they never really.
That's what he wanted from them. He didn't care about information from them.
They never really show you in any of the movies how heartless and ruthless he is, and other than that line, that's the one line that references a history we've never seen. I mean, even in the animated holiday special, does he do anything really that dastardly other than betray people?
No.
Well, keep in mind he does disintegrate that night blaster. What are their names? The night farts or whatever. Oh, the Nightwing.
Yeah.
He disintegrates one of those guys in the first episode. Clearly disintegrates him. So his reputation remains intact.
Wait a minute. And what in the first episode of Book of Boba Fett?
Yes. The guy was climbing up on the and he lit him up with the gauntlet missile.
There you go.
Well, was that a disintegrator?
Well, the guy was gone.
He was gone. He took out a chunk of the wall. Here's David with another super chat. Thank you so much. I'm loving Boba so far, especially chapter 2. You guys think Kenobi will build off of the expanded Tusken understanding this show is creating?
Cool.
No.
I like this point that David brings up, because here's a concern I have to voice this, guys. We're going to now have 2 series taking place on Tatooine. We also have some Tatooine sprinkled in throughout the Mandalorian. Just throwing it out there. Is it too much Tatooine? Is it too much recycled reuse of the same settings?
No.
Well, they got the set. I mean, that's
right.
As I'm watching the Book of Boba Fett, the kind of filmmaker aspect of my mind goes, okay, I get it. You built a really nice set and you've got to use, I mean, that's why film series are created, right? They don't just make all these big elaborate sets and costumes for one movie. They go, well, no, we're going to do a series like Lord of the Rings trilogy. So, hey, they did it. It looks fantastic. And
Keep it
since
going,
we didn't
right?
get, yeah, exactly. I like seeing it. I dig it.
Hey, by the way, we've got we still have over 500 people watching, and we only have 182 thumbs up. So would you please give us a thumbs up? Hit the like button. Smash it, as the kids say. Super chat from Clark says, theory. The Tuskens are descendant from an aquatic race when Tatooine had oceans, hence the face coverings. That's cool. Yeah, they do talk about how the oceans dried up.
Right. That's a nice shout out to the old Dark Horse series, Dawn of the Jedi, where they describe Tatooine is being a lush, vibrant world with many oceans, etc. And the reason they do that is because Dawn of the Jedi is set several thousand years in the past. They describe Tatooine as a lush world where twin suns warm fair skies, a thriving world where life peacefully lives in gleaming cities alongside blue seas. So, and it looks like Earth.
Jimmy, that's so pretty, especially the way you say it.
Yeah. Tatooine, a lush world on the day of your daughter's wedding, Don Corleone.
Thank you,
Tatooine
Luca
is a
Brazzi.
lush world.
Back to the phones we go. Paul from Phoenix, first-time caller. Thank you, Paul. You're on with Rebel Force Radio and Michael Mercy.
Hey guys, I just wanted to say I'm really, I'm loving how alive, Mos Espa is. Everywhere you look, there's something to see. And I appreciate how much they're bringing in classic aliens. This episode brought in, the Chadra fan, the bad aliens, and then had, Snaggletooth. So it'll be fun to see those pop up again in future projects. And I love how they continue to sneak in things like Jimmy brought up the Hoojib. And I love how 2 episodes now we've had the Star Tours RX droid. I love how, Dave and Favreau are sneaking those things in still.
I love it
the Red
too.
Rodian. The Red Rodian was also back for this episode. He must have dug his ass out of the sand and made his way to the bar.
Can we get sitting there? Can we get a green one, please?
We've had enough green ones.
Oh no!
It used to drive
been there,
me
done
nuts. No. It used to drive me nuts as a kid watching A New Hope. In the scene right after Han shoots Greedo, Greedo's out walking down the street. That drove me nuts.
As we just heard, you got the sets, you got the costumes. Come on, man, use them. You built them.
Reuse. You want something? You want something green? Here's something green. A little sweaty here.
Oh,
the frog.
I love it. That's a Muppet Baby. It's a Muppet Baby. Is that a Happy Meal toy?
It's great for soft sweat. There you go. Thanks a lot.
We got some more super chats here. This is again from Clark. I think this is Clark. Come on, man. That's so generous. Maybe Boba's cavalry in some final showdown with the Hutts, Mare, etc. will be Tuskens reinstating their claim to Tatooine. Well, that's an interesting idea. I actually wrote, Clark, thank you for bringing that up, because I wrote that down as a note to ask these guys. Do you think, and I want to hear from each of you, do you think that by the end of this series, or this season, whatever it ends up being, that there will be some connection between the two plot lines? In other words, will the Tuskens somehow re-enter the storyline of the crime lord Boba Fett?
That's interesting. Yeah, maybe. See, I just can't help but think the only reason he emerges from Tusken life in The Mandalorian and starts searching for his armor again is because his clan gets wiped out and he has no one left, nothing left. So he goes back to the only other way of life he knew how to live, because it's not like he could just assimilate himself into other Tusken tribes. We've been told that there are differences among these tribes. They have different philosophies, different ways of life. And so it's probably not that easy just to transfer from one tribe to another. That being said, I believe the big thing we got to look at is how how are the Tuskens going to change as a result of Boba being in their presence? He brings technology to them via the speeder bikes. And common sense just tells you that one of those Tuskens is curious enough to take apart one of those speeder bikes to see how it works and put it all back together again. Thus giving him knowledge to create and work in other realms of technology.
Not to cross the streams. Yeah, not to cross the streams too much, but I was thinking a little bit about Star Trek, about the Prime Directive and how Starfleet was not allowed to interfere with, I don't mean to be offensive here, but primitive cultures or other cultures. Is it, too much too soon? But Michael, I want to ask you, does there need for this show to be a storytelling triumph? Do you need a way to connect the two, parallel plot lines that we're seeing by the end of it?
Yeah. I don't know if it needs it. I'd appreciate it. It would be nice, but I have a wonder. I'm not going to call it a theory because I don't feel so strongly about it that I'm going to throw it out as a theory, but I have a wonder because my feeling of Boba Fett, the character himself, or Tem, as Jimmy calls him, has completely changed after just this episode. I went from going, yeah, this is cool, but he's not really Boba. Kind of like the Snake Eyes movie. I watched that movie and I went, hey, he was cool. He wasn't really Snake Eyes, but he was cool. Yeah. So up until this episode, I was going, he's not really Boba, but he's cool. Now I'm wondering if this whole series is Unforgiven. If we are going to be seeing episode after episode in present time where he's ruling Mos Espa, and like there's a line in this episode where the mayor says, I know your reputation, bounty hunter, and Boba goes, I'm not a bounty hunter anymore. Yeah. That was a very important line for me. That when I really gravitated towards, that is Clint Eastwood in Unforgiven over and over saying, I ain't like that no more. Yes. Oh, Will Money. Money. We know Will Money. Will Money's the baddest man on the planet. Will Money is the devil incarnate. I ain't like that no more. I'm married. I got a kid. I ain't like that no more. Over and over and over again. So I'm wondering this. And then when he goes, I'm not a bounty hunter, I'm like, oh, I'm starting to wonder even stronger here. Is this whole show, I'm not a bounty hunter, I ain't like that no more, something to tie these two stories comes together. I don't know if you would think it would be the wiping out of his clan, but we get the final episode, which is basically the final 15 minutes of Unforgiven, where Will Money is like, I guess I am still like that. And basically destruction incarnate ravages the town. And we get the old, disintegrate everybody Boba Fett in the final closing of this season. I'm wondering about that.
Which is a bit of a tragedy, like it is in Unforgiven, where he's striving to be something better, something different.
And they won't let him.
That's cool. Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in. Yeah.
That's
and he goes back to bounty hunting.
Yeah, right.
That's some good speculation there. And that's a lot of what we do is just like brainstorming speculations. A lot of times when we have these conversations and we start talking about the possibilities of where the story is going to go, I always treat it like I'm in the writer's room, and I'm there and I'm throwing out any idea I could, like any brainstorm I have, I'll throw it up against the wall to see if it sticks. And I did that last week. As we were talking about Fennec Shan and the female Tusken. And I said, what if Fennec Shan has been riding with the Tuskens for a number of years? And that's her. That's female Tusken is Fennec Shan. And I just threw it out there, just, off the top of my head, a what if. I'm not saying that I think it's going to happen. I think that odds are way against something like that. It sounds absurd, but I just threw it out there as a what if, just to have fun. And some people actually took it to heart, like Antonio from New Jersey, who says he thinks I'm 100% right on with who that Lady Sand person is.
Wow.
It's Fennec Shan. And he says there's a clear visual hint in this episode when Fett is talking to the Pikes after taking out the train. Look where and how she's positioned behind Fett. Look familiar? It does, because she's at his right hand, standing next to him as he is conducting negotiations with the Pikes, much like Fennec Shan has been seen a couple of times now, standing to Boba's right as he is negotiating with Aqualish or the Mayor's Major Domo or the Black Knight Winds or whatever they are called.
It doesn't stick, does it? It's so hard.
I don't know why because I knew that name last week and I was going to blow everyone's minds away and drop it on the show. And I couldn't remember it and I couldn't find it. And that's my fault for being unorganized. But I mean, what a long shot it would be if that female Tusken takes off the bandages and, oh my God, it's Ming-Na Wen in there.
You know,
and her skin looks fabulous still.
Of course. Throughout each episode, I want to see them with their helmets off. She's dying to know. And she has, I think, conjured up in her head this kind of gnarly look. But I have this feeling that they're going to be, you know, beautiful underneath. I think that would be a lot more fulfilling and satisfying, you know, if there was a lot of contrast between the masks and the helmets and what they look like underneath. Guys, I got to stop and just thank, this is just insanely generous from Chris Valentine with this amazing super chat. Chris, this is above and beyond, dude. Thank you so much with the 1138 number. Really appreciate that. Very, very kind.
That's great.
No question, just appreciation for the years of entertainment RFR has given us all. Jim, I will be in Chicago this weekend with the fam, hoping the Galloping Ghost hasn't been shut down by the vid so we can check it out. Many thanks and shut.
No, we're open. The Ghost is open. Definitely. You can't close down the Galloping Ghost, that's for sure.
Chris, thank you very much.
So go check it out and let me know. Maybe I'll poke my head in there and visit you. And say hi, and we can talk Star Wars.
Red Leader
distract
4
you from playing classic video games.
Red Leader 4 with the super chat. Thank you very much. Very kind of you as well. Forces with Jesse says, "G'day, mates. Watching from Kessel Run Hair and Collectibles, a pop culture hair salon in South Australia. What is a pop culture hair salon? I gotta know.
To go there. I definitely want to go there and get like a Qui-Gon style or something. You know?
Yeah.
I'll be like, you sit in a chair and you go, give me a kitster, please. You know, something like that.
What a bowl cut is that the kitster?
Yeah. Give me a kitster. I'll take a kitster.
That's
nice.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's you guys are just beyond anything. I love it. Here's another first-time caller joining us. This is Joe from Rochester. Hey, Joe, you're on with Rebel Force Radio and Michael Mercy. What's going on?
Hey, guys. Hey, I just wanted to bring something up that I noticed. So Boba Fett, at the beginning of this episode and the previous episode, was dressed in white. And then after he saved the Tusken Raiders from the train and went on a spiritual journey, they dressed him in black. And that reminded me, just like Luke in episode 4, starting out in white and then transitioning into black as well in episode 6, Return of the Jedi. And, you know, a lot of us know that like George Lucas did this on purpose previously as like Carl Jung's trope as integrating the shadow or like parts that were not acknowledged of himself previously. So I just really thought that was a cool parallel. I'm excited to see what they'll do with Boba Fett with this new change that he's had.
You know, I've wondered, I mean, on a very superficial level, I mean, you're going deep, which I love. On a very superficial level, I was looking at, and we talked about it when we were analyzing one of the trailers, and I said, well, that's not the same flight suit as what he has, you know, in the original trilogy, because I don't recall it being white, but obviously it's bleached out from the sun. It's been, you know, it's had Sarlacc juices all over it or whatever. So it is the same thing. But isn't it funny? I mean, if I recall, I mean, I thought George took Luke black because he wanted to build up suspense about whether or not Luke was going to go to the dark side, so to speak. And so with Boba, it's like the inverse of that. You know, he comes out of the Sarlacc white, and then he ends up, you know, black robe, black clad. So it is similar to Luke, but I feel like maybe the inverse. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it could be both potentially too. I can't cite my source exactly, but I've seen videos on YouTube of like George referencing these like Jungian tropes, like psychological tropes that he used intentionally because they're just old as time, and they're great for the purpose of storytelling. That he's done so well, and that these writers are just knocking it out of the park, and just doing so well too. So it could possibly be both of them, because I've heard that as well too, to kind of like leave mystery as the will Luke go to the dark side as well. But I obviously have him on the right path with Boba Fett.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. Joe, thanks so much. Appreciate you tuning in. Appreciate the call. Let's see. We've got another first-time caller. This is Sean from Minneapolis. Hey, Sean. Yo, you're on with Rebel Force Radio and Michael Mercy.
Hey, Sean.
Hello, Sean. Sean, you've been on hold a long time, dude, so I can understand.
Yeah, he's not paying attention.
Has anyone ever butt dialed you into the show?
Yeah, maybe that's what happened with Sean.
Sean, I'm gonna send you back to the queue. We're gonna try in a little bit, because Tyler says this is a great call, so we don't want to miss a great call. So I'm putting you back in the queue, dude. So hopefully
he's having lunch with someone from Star Wars.
Maybe he is. But in the meantime, let's talk to Nate from Rochester. Hey, Nate, you're on with Rebel Force Radio. Yo, yo. Chut, chut.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
How you doing?
Chut, chut. My good buddy Joe was just on the phone, also from Rochester.
Oh, Joe was?
We're selling you guys right and left.
I love it. What's on your mind?
Yeah. Well, you guys have pretty much answered a lot of my questions already, so I'm waiting on hold, and I'm like, man, got to check that one off.
Oh, don't you hate that?
But I got a couple here, so I got two left.
Okay.
I'm curious why he keeps having to go. He keeps having to go to the Bacta tank, right? Because
yeah,
sense if he had just recently gotten out of the Sarlacc pit, right? But he seems pretty healthy, kicking down the train and everything. Yet he keeps having to go back. This is this is immediately after Mandalorian. He goes out there and whoops a bunch of whoops ass in the Mandalorian season 2, and seems fine there. But yet he's got to go to the Bacta tank. Is it just to heal the scars? Is there something else that we don't know about? So.
Keep in mind, we saw Vader going to the Bacta tank in Rogue One, and that was several years following his defeat on Mustafar. Right. I mean, a decade at the very least, more than that, almost 2 decades. So we see that maybe Bacta is like Rogaine, and you'll grow hair as long as you use it, but when you stop, your hair will all fall out again.
Yeah, his eyebrows come back, but his hair doesn't.
Too, right?
Well, I think it's like the old guy in your neighborhood that you just see him, all of a sudden he's walking every day. And you're like, oh, did you have a health scare? Is that what's going on? Now all of a sudden you're walking every day. So I think that, as he's getting older, he realizes that he's not as young as he used to be. No, really what I think it comes down to is access. I think he's got access to the Bacta. Jabba was living a life of luxury. I think there was all kinds of amenities there in Jabba's palace, and he's like, wow, man, there's a, and by the way, it's not a Bacta tank. We learned this last week. It is a Bacta bath, right? Isn't that what it's called?
Tanning bed.
Bacta pod. No, thank you.
Tanning bed.
Yeah, the tanning bed. I like to call it the tanning bed, but it is that's right. No, Jimmy was right. It's the Bacta pod.
Yeah.
And so I think that he's taking advantage of it, and that could be. This is just another theory. I don't think we'll ever know for sure, but it could be why the dreams have returned. There might be something regenerative about the Bacta. And and why he's reliving all this stuff, but that's just my crackpot. Michael, I like what you called it. It's not a theory. What did you call it? A
wonder.
A wonder. I like that. It's a step down from theory. It's a wonder. I wonder.
Yeah.
It's a wonder unless it's correct.
One more.
Then it becomes a theory.
Right.
Yeah. And once you learn it was correct, it's like, I was
heard it here.
About that.
You heard it here first, folks.
That was my
if
theory
I'm right.
all along.
If I'm right. If I'm wrong, never mind.
Nate, anything else you wanted to add? I know you were also picking up the Dances with Wolves vibes.
Oh yeah, so what would your Native American name be for Boba Fett? You got Kicking Bird, you got Stands with Fists, you got Dances with Wolves. So what would Boba's
Snorts
name
Lizard?
be?
Oh, that's the one.
How about Smells like Sarlacc. Smells like Sarlacc is what I'd call him.
Somewhere between Snorts Lizard and Smells Like Sarlacc is the winner.
Snort Sarlacc.
For sure.
Sarlacc Snorter.
Nate, thanks, man. Appreciate it. Thank you for the call and for being a Patreon supporter. Really, really appreciate it.
He's a good guy.
I think Sean from Minneapolis is ready. He's ready this time. He's ready to knock it out of the park. Hey, Sean.
I'm here. I'm ready, guys. I'm here and I'm ready.
I'm glad they added the return to queue button on our software here. So before I would have just had to let you go. Now I can return you back to the queue. So no, it's great to have you. Thanks very much. So what's on your mind?
So long time listener. Thank you very much for everything you guys do. Always.
Thanks. Man.
But Boba Fett, since middle school, I'm 39, has been my favorite character. So of course, this is incredible that they can bring it back with Tomorris. And then I think there are 3 angles this 3 to 4 season needs to go. There needs to be a resolution with Han. There needs to be an acknowledgement of Omega, and he needs to end this series as the most ruthless bounty hunter in the galaxy.
Go full circle, like
that's what I feel. Believe that this house. Yeah,
well, I think you're right on with the Han Solo thing, and the rumors are flying around fast and furious about Harrison Ford shooting a sequence or 2 for this Boba Fett series. Obviously, they'll de-age him. They're working on the same technology for the next Indiana Jones film, so they can just incorporate all that into Book of Boba Fett.
And they got that YouTube guy now, since they.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
The deep fake guy.
The great work there, de-aging on YouTube. They hired him, obviously, with an eye on doing a lot of things in that realm.
Right.
Wouldn't surprise me if we see Mark Hamill come back. But obviously, Harrison Ford fits the Boba Fett story so well. Han Solo does, that is. And the return of Luke Skywalker in The Mandalorian was just one of the most... It was one of the biggest moments for Disney Star Wars and one of the biggest moments for Star Wars in general. So I don't think that could be diminished. And as I've said before, Hollywood loves to repeat itself. If they come up with a good idea, they're going to beat it into the ground. And so
like poetry.
You'll be expecting to see Han Solo. So I think you're right on with that. Omega, I don't know. I mean, she hasn't really been established in Boba Fett's life very much outside of having that connection that they're from the same place and they're both clones. But I don't see the connection there, so I don't see a need for any sort of live action resolution to the Omega story, especially knowing that we have Bad Batch season 2 coming up later this year. So I think there needs to be more. What's that?
Yeah, no, you're 100%.
Oh, I didn't expect you to agree with me. I thought you were going to start arguing, for Omegas.
Well, tell me. Okay, so Jim's pushing back on Omega. I not that I want to push back, but I want you to explain why do you feel that it's necessary for him to sort of end up where he begins as the most ruthless, feared bounty hunter in the galaxy? Wouldn't that subvert his evolution and his growth as a character?
That's who Boba Fett has always been, and now I'm in that kind of category where he's flipping on me. But I don't believe it in the end, because this is Boba Fett. I mean, how much time again was he in the Sarlacc?
What, 30 seconds?
Yeah, you have to figure he was losing air, so he couldn't have stayed in there that long.
Right.
So again, he's still Boba Fett.
Yes.
So he is what he's doing, and he had to go through this. So we don't know how much the Tusken Raiders timeline was. So, but for him to do this, he's got to be being ruthless, planning, cunning. And, he is a Jango Fett, and Jango was always cunning and knowing and pushing off the job to someone else. If you know what I mean.
No, I get you. And great thoughts for sure. Michael, when you were talking about The Unforgiven and how the Clint Eastwood character sort of has to accept at the end that he is that guy that he always was, is that satisfying storytelling? If you're trying to evolve a character, you're trying to tell a trajectory of a character, is that more, kind of like what our last caller was talking about? Boba needs to reclaim his place as the most feared, ruthless bounty hunter in the galaxy. That full circle, yes, it's poetic, but it's also kind of tragic and maybe depressing if you end up where you started and you didn't start in the greatest place. I don't know. How do you reconcile that?
I think it depends where you are in life, how old you are, and because I remember seeing Unforgiven when I was a kid. Well, when I was a teen, I guess, or a little older than that. I grew up on Clint Eastwood, not necessarily Dirty Harry, but the Dollars trilogy, all the other Westerns, Hang 'em High. I loved them. And so when Unforgiven finally came out, another Western for Clint Eastwood, awesome, because I think the last one he had done before that was Pale Rider, which it had been quite a while. So I wanted to see Clint being Clint in a Clint Western, and seeing it as a younger fellow, I was so disappointed with Unforgiven. I thought it was so boring until the final 10 minutes. And anyone I talk to about Unforgiven, oh, how's that Unforgiven? I go, oh, it's so boring, except for the last 10 minutes when he really kicks some butt. Later on in life, when I watch it, I appreciate it more for what it's supposed to be. And it is a tragedy. And, it's a great story. And I don't really dig depressing stuff, but Unforgiven is it's a really well told story. It's not super depressing and a downer to me. It's just a great story. Well directed too. Clint directed it, great acting. And what pushes him over the edge is they kill his buddy who didn't deserve it. So it's kind of a revenge piece too, though. So Boba Fett, if that's the route they go, I don't know. We don't want to get too far into the speculation, but again, that might be depressing and not satisfying for people who just want to see Boba Fett, kick some butt. They'll enjoy the final episode. But for people who've done some living, maybe they'll go, well, that's life. And that's what life does, Uncle George is very wise when he says it's like poetry, it rhymes, life rhymes, and it just keeps repeating over and over. And when you hang around this little blue planet long enough, you start seeing patterns and repetition, and and you just go, you see it now later in life. I watch Unforgiven and I go, yeah, okay, I see that, and around and around we go.
I think Boba might regain some of his sharpness as the bounty hunter, the ruthless bounty hunter, through laws. And also he's getting pushback already. Fennec Shand wants him to rule with fear. 88, his consigliere is telling him,
Jimmy, I'm going to give you a tip here. Jimmy, since I do this on YouTube all the time with action figures. When I hold things up to the camera and they're out of focus, I've learned that you have to put your other hand behind. Yeah, there you go. Then it focuses.
Like calloused up hand. I mean, look at that.
You know what?
It's pretty clear.
You know what?
And then it looks like he's hanging with me a little bit. It's like,
that's
me
true.
And
Disregard
hanging out.
We don't want to see your calluses.
So, but I mean, he's. Well, I'll keep that in mind. Here, let's try it right now.
No, please, no. Oh God, don't. The calluses.
Look at the focus.
Guys, you all know Jimmy's a radio guy. He's a radio guy. Every time something goes wrong with the video, he's like, well, I'm an audio guy. Video stuff. No, we never heard. I was thinking for the longest time in watching this show that I go, I don't know about that voice for 8D8. I said it feels different. And then I realized we never heard 8D8 in Return of the Jedi. I just was thinking, about EV99 and his voice. I was conflating It's freaking puppet theater all of a sudden here at RFR. But I was conflating EV99 and 8D8 a little bit.
Right.
But we never heard.
How many languages do you speak?
Yeah, it's different.
It is very different, and I something about 8D8's voice on this show I'm not digging. It's a little
You know
too
what's
human.
odd? 8D8 made his debut in Return of the Jedi, as we know. The torture droid in Jabba's dungeon, punishing poor power droid.
Yes.
As he screams, no. Oh, all of a sudden, you know how to say something more than gonk, huh? Yeah. We'll burn your feet off, pal. You'll start speaking English. But this guy,
reciting Shakespeare.
This guy, 8D8, he has been credited as being portrayed by Richard Marquand. And so I don't understand how Richard could have had any sort of, the character doesn't speak. It's clearly a puppet. So maybe Richard was on the floor pulling
he's pulling the strings
as he was torturing poor power droid. But if anyone has any information on Richard Marquand, the director of Return of the Jedi, and his involvement in the 8D8 character, email it to me if it's an article or whatever. But it's something I've definitely heard in the past, and I just don't see how it's possible.
How does he? Yeah, how do you get credit for that? Hey, super chat here from Keith James. He said, "Chut, guys, my son Gabe and I listen all the time. He has to wait till the morning, though, because of school." Yeah, my son as well. He listens. He watches the after shows. He watches the after shows more religiously than he watches the actual content that the after show is based on. He says, but he'll be excited to hear his name on the show. We all love the content. Cheers. Well, cheers to you, Keith and Gabe. So, Gabe, if you're listening, really appreciate it, buddy. Glad you're loving Book of Boba Fett and RFR. So thanks for listening with your dad.
I want Gabe to hear his name as many times as possible. Gabe.
The echo.
There you
go. Echo. Yeah, thanks, Gabe. Got another call here. Let's check in with... Oh, wait a minute. Do we have a twofer here? Is this Mark and Steph? Mark and Steph calling in? We have a couple calling in from Texas?
Yes.
Well,
Hey,
hello
Steph.
there.
You have Mark and Steph Ground Runner. Woohoo!
All right. Welcome, Ground Runners.
I was
Appreciate
hoping it was Steph Green who directed this episode, but we'll go with the Ground Runners. That's fine.
Well, we, of course, I'm loving the show, and we wanted to point out a couple things we noticed with the story and where it's possibly going. But we know Boba Fett's having new character growth.
Whoa. I got to stop you right there, Mark. What's his name?
Oh.
I know you're from Texas and all, but what's his name?
Boba Fett.
Thank you. I thought I heard a Bubba Fett. And
Yeah, we've heard other Texans say it that way in the past. You know who you are.
Maybe it is a Texan. Thank you for correcting me. But
Bubba.
we obviously know with the flashback, his father died. We all know that with Django, and it's interesting with the flashback they picked. As a kid, he's watching his father fly away on mission.
Yeah.
So you get the sense he's always alone. And his father died, of course. He was left alone. And during the Clone Wars, he's with the wrong crowd, seeking a family, mostly for revenge, right? And that's how he kind of becomes a bounty hunter. Tatooine, he's left for dead. And then I went back and watched Mando season 2 when they're at the end, the last episode, where he's with Mando and Bo-Katan, and Koska Reeves is there, and they really despise him and reject him. Like, you're never a Mandalorian, and just disgusted with him. And you really get the sense of, like, man, he's a true loner, right? He's never had a real family. And now with the Tuskens, he's kind of, I think, feeling that family sense of purpose, right? Where he's like truly giving
The family's welcoming him in. You got the kid, you got the adults. And so it's interesting. He's no longer just surviving, but he's part of the family. And so, and it's interesting to see where it's going to go. And, and now what's his true sense of purpose? And I think some folks have put in the chat, like, he's really going to maybe try to help the Tusken Raiders get their land back. Maybe he's got some purpose there, but he's obviously stating, I'm not a bounty hunter anymore. And so there's something different about him. And that's what I love about this flashback, is you're seeing what happened in the past. So it's really good.
Yeah. And with his purpose, we just had one last thing. We're thinking like, even just as a clone, how like if you watch Bad Batch, each clone was made with a purpose. There's supposed to be a reason for them. He's kind of always just had the purpose of being Jango's son. So now we're thinking he finally found a reason, and we're thinking he's maybe helping the Tuskens.
No, I love that. I think
I do too.
That's really great thoughts from both of you. Thank you guys so much for calling in. Thanks also for your Patreon support. Really appreciate it. So this loner, so this evolution in his character does make sense if he's been this person that's always looked for, which we all do, right? We all look for some sense of belonging. I mean, some people pride themselves on being loners, but I think at heart we all want to belong to something bigger, something better than ourselves. And he's finding it. And Jim, you at first I kind of discounted the idea that what was going to propel him to his next phase in life is wiping out his tribe. But the more I think about it, and thinking about what this couple just said, that does seem to make a lot of sense, that would drive him to that next phase. Because why would he ever leave,
Right. It seems like he's found his place where he's fitting in. He found his family, and he's making a difference for them. They're making a difference for him, but he's really, putting his mark on the Tusken society. And so he's found his sense of belonging there. And he does those katas with the gaffy stick so well. I thought at first when she was dancing and he was dancing by the bonfire, that it was some sort of mating ritual that was going on.
Dude, I kept waiting for, throughout this episode, that the chief was going to bequeath or give the female Tusken to him as some sort of prize.
That may happen
in a romantic way. I don't mean it in a caveman clubber over the head kind of way.
Yes.
I mean in a, what's that like?
With a bottle of Chardonnay and some candles.
Right, exactly.
Oh, by the way, we will be at convention centers in 2022 setting up bonfires in the parking lot so we could get a big group of people around with gaffy sticks, and we can all do that ritual dance together. Could you see Swank out there swinging around?
I love doing this episode between Mike and Jimmy Mac. We've got the ultimate prop comic. So Jim mentions the gaffy stick. All of a sudden, he's got a 4-inch scale gaffy stick. Mike's got all of his action figures behind him, his Star Wars scale. Oh, it does make a nice toothpick, as Jimmy Mac is pointing out.
Yeah, well, I learned that from the Mandalorian when we were cleaning the Panther's teeth with the
with the
gaffy stick. Yeah,
Jason has a super chat rather. Best hut look since Return of the Jedi. Totally agree. These two huts, I really liked them. I really did.
Well, they were finally
what made it work so well. I think what made it work so well is less is more. They didn't do much. Like they just sat there and spoke. Yeah. And also they put a tattoo on one of the lips, which distracts you.
I like that.
From it being
Is there a tattoo on the lip? I didn't notice that.
Yeah. The male had a tattoo and the female had something underneath her lip too. I don't know if it was a button or something.
It's hard to see because she had that little dainty hand fan. When she was fanning herself off with that thing.
Such a great contrast to the
that
hulking
makes a difference.
But they didn't try to overdo it.
Tatooine heat.
They were
No,
genuine
no.
huts, and a genuine hut doesn't do anything. Jabba didn't do anything. He just sat there and was this big slug. And I think they tried to go back to that instead of big, grandiose movements.
Yeah, instead
which
of
huts
moving
really shouldn't be doing.
around and Han stepping on his tail and him doing like zoinks, you know. Another super chat here. This is from Mo. Mo says, Chut, fellas, why did the twin huts wait several years for Bib to be deposed before claiming Mos Espa? Why are the Pikes transporting spice on Tatooine if it's mined on Kessel and most likely sold elsewhere? Love y'all. Love you, Mo. Thanks very much, man. So I was trying to determine length of time as well. How much time between, the Jabba's demise on the sail barge to where we see Boba at the end of Mandalorian season 2 take out Bib
5 or
Fortuna.
6 years, I think. I think it's been stated, 5 or 6 years after Return of the Jedi. 5 years.
Oh, I see. Right. It's the same continuity. Yes, right. It would be the same amount of time between the events of The Mandalorian and Return of the Jedi, which is 5 to 6 years. So the question is, why would the Hutts choose now to jump in? They obviously would have been aware of Bib's usurping of Jabba's power in place.
I think I know.
Please.
I think I know why.
Why?
Because this is when the show takes place.
Oh, right.
Because I was wondering why Tim Morrison as Boba Fett, the timelines don't match up. Shouldn't Boba be in his 40s? And Tim isn't. He looks fantastic for his age, but he's not. And the answer is because that's when the show takes place.
Sometimes it's as simple as that.
Might be it. Yeah.
It's a cheat of an answer, but I'll give
theories.
it to you.
I'd love to hear some theories though.
Because technically, shouldn't Boba Fett be played at this point by Bodie Taylor? Isn't he more of a Bodie Taylor than a Tim Morrison?
I don't think so.
Somewhere between?
Because, the clones were created, Boba was created several years prior to the events of episode 2.
Mm-hmm.
The events of episode 2 happened roughly 23 years before A New Hope.
Okay.
All right. So Boba's like 12 in episode 2. So by the time A New Hope begins, he's around 40 years old.
Is he already?
Is my math right on that? Yeah. Yeah. Maybe not that old. Maybe in his mid 30s. And then 4 years later, 5 years later, then you're at the end of Return of the Jedi. So he's now in his early to mid 40s. Then 5 years after that, he's like 50. He's like 50-year-old dude.
Okay.
That makes sense.
I buy it.
The old Topps Empire Strikes Back trading card stated Boba Fett was 43 years old during Empire Strikes Back. Really? Add 9 years to that, and he's 52, according to Topps Canon. Topps Canon from the 80s. But that seems, they're pretty close. They're pretty close, I think. They're pretty close. Can I mention something about the timeline before we get into this super chat?
Yes.
It's been brought up a few times on the show. How long was Boba in the Sarlacc? And I think we have all the pieces of the puzzle to determine exactly how long he was in there. Because if you remember, in The Marshal, which was the season 2 premiere of Mandalorian season 2, of course, I'm being repetitive. In that episode, Cobb Vanth is in Mos Pelgo, and they're celebrating the fall of the Empire, the same day that the Death Star is destroyed. And they're watching it via hologram. Later that night, Raiders came into town and blasted away everyone. They took over the town, and Cobb Vanth barely escaped with his life. He stole a Camptono full of crystals from the back of one of the Raiders' speeders and set out into the desert. Later, it couldn't have been much later because he couldn't have survived that long out in the desert by himself. So maybe a day later or maybe the next morning, he's picked up by Jawas who nurse him back to health. They give him water and everything. And in exchange for the crystals in the Camptono, he accepts Boba Fett's armor as a trade.
Mm-hmm.
So the Jawas already have the armor. And if Boba Fett was thrown into the Sarlacc just prior to the Battle of Endor. I mean, what kind of how many days are we talking about there? It's only a matter of days, right?
Yeah.
By the time, the Falcon reunites with the Rebel fleet, they mass near Sullust, and they all get sent off on their mission. So I think that happened pretty rapid fire. So it couldn't have been more than a matter of days. It's hard to determine like Earth time in the Star Wars universe. And that's something that George Lucas always tried to avoid, were like time references like that. But I think a few of them may have slipped through. But like strict time references, I don't think there were ever any made in Star Wars, quite honestly. Even military time, I don't think so.
Yeah,
it would have taken some of the magic away. Like if Empire Strikes Back started and it goes 3 years later. It's not done.
No.
Yeah, we've never seen that, have we?
Super chat from Thomas says, girl on bike, Taras Kazi master Arden Lin. So there's a theory that it's Arden Lin from the Masters of Taras Kazi video
obscure fighting game from 20 years ago that nobody really played.
Dude, I love that game. Yes. Yes. Where else can you be like Obi-Wan Kenobi versus a Gamorrean guard? It was so much fun.
I don't like fighting games like that, Mortal Kombat, stuff like that. That's my preference. I don't really go for those type of games. But,
I like the games where you can sort of drop in, play a little bit and scoot out.
Oh yeah. That's one of those.
Yeah.
Taras Kasi, though, largely forgotten until it got briefly mentioned in Solo. But it's one of those weird things that Disney latches onto. So I wouldn't be surprised at all, like Han Solo's dice, like blue milk, like these weird things that Disney latches onto. It's just kind of funny and weird.
Michael, you have already made your mark on RFR here. This is a wonder. Familiar vibes. Familiar vibes this episode when Boba gets Tusken getup and Gaffy compared to Mando and Armory getting Beskar, both on similar path. Discuss. I think they are setting this up so it's not a theory, it's a wonder. I think they are setting these two characters up to be on a sort of a familiar and similar in some ways path. I like that. I think it's well observed.
For sure. Like poetry. It rhymes.
Yeah, that's right. It's like poetry. Shut up. It's poetry. Now this is a theory from Ferris 84. Okay. Not a wonder. This is a theory. Badass Black Tusken is women that keeps Boba in tribe so long. Boba had wife and daughter in EU. Boba babies in Filoniverse needs reason stay. What kind of language is this, Ferris?
Well, I want to see this Boba babies show.
Boba babies, we make our dreams.
That was similar to speculation I made last week about Boba having to stay with the tribe because he falls in love.
Yeah.
What else would keep him around? Oh, these guys know where the good black melons are. I mean, you need something more to keep him around.
Yeah.
I got a question about those black melons, guys. The black melons, have they ever appeared before? Because I don't recall seeing them
in the
before.
Mandalorian.
Were they in Mando?
Mandalorian. Okay. Yeah, but
is he drinking out of one?
Water in there. It's when Mando sits down with the tribe. They open one, and you see like a black mist comes out of it.
But nothing in the Clone Wars, because in such a desolate planet where they're desperately like evaporating moisture to get every precious drop. And I just thought it was surprising that you can just dig in the sand a little bit with your hands and literally find one of these. And maybe it's just in the one area, which is
that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that I'm thinking they're pretty rare, but the Tuskens know where to find these. Yeah. And that's why they put those two, the two prisoners there to dig for them. But
it is the Dune Sea, so obviously that area was at one time
water, right? But I was confused because at one point he talks about the milk from there and not water. So unless they're using milk as sort of a, I don't know, water is the mother's milk. I don't know, but he does specifically
it's like
say
the water
milk.
in a coconut is called milk.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
More water
Coconut
than
water.
milk.
Yep. Yeah, that makes
true.
sense. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, final super chat here from Ben. Ben says, the Empire needs to recruit fish-trained guards and Tuskens to be stormtroopers. Both sides were squeezing off some amazing shots. That's right, yes. The fish-trained
Incredible
guards.
shooting, yeah.
It was. Those poor
Amazing.
banthas. Oh, those poor banthas
know.
getting picked off. That was the worst. And then they... I didn't pick up, actually, until I read the Wikipedia episode summary that one of the victims of the raid and who Boba throws on the funeral pyre was a youngling. I didn't realize that one of the younglings got picked off. It's not the one that he was palling around with, though, I don't think, is it?
No, because that kid was there when he got suited up in the robes.
That's right. Yes.
He ran and held his hand and walked him out to go forge that gaffy stick, which is just
Got a question about that. Got a question about that kid. His whole mission purpose was to use the mirror to warn the Tusken Raiders when the train was coming.
Yeah.
What was up with that? I mean, did he give them like 5 seconds heads up?
Yeah. Well, what else was weird was they already knew the train was coming.
Yeah.
So
right.
I think the kid was supposed to give a signal like when it comes around a certain dune, so they'll know when to shoot or something.
Oh,
like
okay. That makes more sense.
I was left scratching my head a little bit too, Mike.
Because they wanted to give the kids something cool to do on the TV show.
Well, give them a sense of worth.
Hey, I love the. I mean, I think we mentioned it, but the Pikes coming into live action, I thought was awesome. More of that Filoni verse expanding and.
Well, that's actually George verse. Those Pikes were developed for Lucas's Star Wars Underworld TV series that never took off. That's how the Pikes were initially developed. They were going to be their inhabitants on level 1313 and all that. And so they're finally seeing their TV live action debut via Boba Fett. They were seen in Solo on Kessel.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, but you could barely see him because the movie was so dark.
It was shot underwater. Jello. It was shot in a Jello mold.
Well, I think that's going to wrap it up. We went a little bit long. I hope you don't mind too much. We had a lot of fun talking about this episode. I'm very excited for where the show was going. I got to admit, I had butterflies in my stomach when I got up this morning because I knew I was going to see a new episode of Book of Boba Fett. Even episodes that aren't my favorite necessarily still get me excited. We're living, I think, in a new golden age of Star Wars content, and I think you could probably accurately say that they've learned from their mistakes. I really do. I don't see them making the same mistakes that they made with the sequel trilogy films. I think they're learning, and so far so good. Mandalorian 2 seasons in, Bad Batch, and now 2 episodes or 2 chapters in with Book of Boba Fett. I think we're in a good place. I think that some of the criticism is a little premature. As we said, this is playing out a little less episodic, a little bit more thematic, or a little bit more filmic, I guess you might say. And we're seeing chunks of it at a time. And so in that sense, I don't necessarily feel that. No, I think it's going in a great direction. Michael, thank you so much for being on the show, man. And I should say, Michael's been kind enough to have me on his channel a couple of times. We've done a couple of Toy Guys Talking. We did a Toon commentary over the pilot episode of James Bond Jr. animated series. But there is nobody on YouTube that talks about vintage toys and new toys and everything that made growing up in the 80s so wonderful. That no one that talks about it with as much heart and passion and nostalgia as Michael Mercy. So go over to YouTube and subscribe to Michael's YouTube channel. It's incredible. You'll lose yourself. You'll binge on all the various playlists. If you're a fan of G.I. Joe, Thundercats, Transformers, Star Wars, pro wrestling, classic pro wrestling from the 80s, it's all there on Michael's channel. So please check it out. Michael, thanks for everything you do for us nostalgia geeks out there.
Hey man, appreciate that. Yeah, that was fun doing the James Bond Jr. Commentary. It's the only one in existence, so it's pretty easy to find. Jimmy, the look on Jimmy's face says it all. James Bond Jr. Commentary. We did it, and not just that.
Boy,
Jason watched it on a projector.
I did. I put it on the big screen down here in the RFR
awesome.
Studios.
Hey, this music is awesome. It's in a loop that never ends, right? This music right here until you sign off.
It never ends.
So it reminds me of the music they used to play at the beginning of Saturday Night's Main Event. And I know, Jason, you're a big wrestling fan.
Yes.
Remember that, didn't you? So I just kind of feel like cutting a promo. Yeah, you're going down.
Oh, yeah. Dig it. Love it.
No, thanks for having me on, guys. It was a blast. Nice to
man.
finally chat with you too, Jimmy. Always a blast chatting with you, Jason. And hi, everyone out there, Rebel Force Radio listeners. Thanks for listening along tonight.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Jimmy Mac, Chapter 2, Tribes of Tatooine. Any final thoughts you have?
Well, I thought this was a great continuation of the first episode. I really liked the way all these little elements of the story just kept coming at you with such a rich quality throughout the entire episode. It felt like there were so many high points. I was expecting the episode to, fade to black and cut to credits many times because it seemed like you had those moments, triumphant moments, defeating the guys in the train. That would have been the end of most episodes, right? But then you still have that whole spiritual vision quest that Boba goes on then. And then you follow that up with the creation of a gaffy stick, which we'd never seen before. And I was just bowled over by that whole sequence of events and really love this episode and see the potential of where this series can go. There's so much story still emerging. I'm sure of it, that our worries or whatever that we're hearing from fellow fans will all become irrelevant after a while. I really have faith in where this show is going. As someone who really did enjoy that first episode, I must have typed F the critics about 1 million times on social media this past week, so sorry for being so repetitive.
Why would you follow the critics?
Well, I don't, but I mean, I would just see people saying, look what so-and-so had to say. Look what this person had to say. Who cares?
Am I misinterpreting what F means?
I think people are starting to realize that there's more value in just trusting your gut about things and going with that. And anybody else's opinions or critiques are all part of the conversation that's around it. But you really should stick with how you feel and not let anybody, not even us on Rebel Force Radio, try to tell you how to think. We could influence your decision maybe, but or even enlighten you to a degree, but never accept our analysis of these episodes as the bottom line. There's plenty of room for interpretation of this stuff, and that's the way it's been since 1977. So everyone get in on the conversation. Don't feed the echo chamber, but instead contribute your personal thoughts, your gut feelings about what these shows do for you. And I think you'll find that you have a really much more enriching experience going forward, as opposed to just saying what you think you should say because some critics tell you what to think. We all can think for ourselves. And that's why I love hearing what Jason has to say. I love hearing what Michael Mercy and all of our guests have to say. I love reading the chat while we're doing the show. You guys crack me up. And you give me a lot to think about as well. And that's why I go through a lot of the email and try to highlight them during the show, because I feel that just you're adding to the conversation. There's no bottom line. Nobody's right or wrong in their assessment of this stuff. Just add to the conversation. and the universe will be much kinder to you. I don't have a sign off for the Book of Boba Fett yet.
Some folks were asking you to say Max Rebo.
Max
in this
Rebo
episode.
he's in both episodes. How about I'll start with the Max Rebo thing. I'll do it, but the first episode he's not in. I'll go with. But for this one, I'll say Nuke Gunray, not in this episode.
Not in this episode.
Yeah.
One last super chat here from our great supporter of us here at Rebel Force Radio and a great guy, Eric from Phoenix. Thought the humor worked better this week. Anyone else think the combing of the desert scene in Spaceballs where they showed the banthas with the rakes? I said that. I said that to my family tonight. I said, oh, look at them combing the desert. Nobody got it. But, I liked it very much, very much. Very
Good
cool
stuff.
Yeah. All right. So we will see you next week for more Book of Boba Fett Chapter 3 coming up. And we'll also have a regular Rebel Force Radio next week as well. So looking forward to getting back and talking more Star Wars news and so much more here on Rebel Force Radio. Thank you all so much for watching, for listening. Thank you, Michael Mercy. Please check him out over on YouTube. The channel is Michael Mercy. And, of course, thanks to Jimmy Mack and our sponsors this week. For more Rebel Force Radio, go to rebelforceradio.com. As I say, we'll be back next week with our flagship show, Rebel Force Radio, and, of course, the Book of Boba Fett after show. We'll see you next time. For Rebel Force Radio, I'm Jason.
I'm Jimmy Mack.
And remember,
the Force will be with you, always.